Chapter 338 Descendants of the Monkey King 13. Team. Yahiko, Thursdays, 6/10. Yianwu moved his hand towards the shedding of the Monkey King. The shedding closed its eyes. Like how a sandcastle fell to the waves, the particles of the shedding crumbled and were absorbed into Batory's vampiric sword. As the shedding of the Monkey King disappeared, the chains clattered to the ground. However, Yianwu couldn't hear anything. It was because of the enormous amount of holy power that was flowing into his hand. I knew there was a lot, but I didn't know it would be this much. A divine being was a divine being. It was obvious he would have a great number of blessings. Of course it would be difficult to swallow it whole. Crunch, crunch, he could hear his body creaking already. The philosopher's stone was spinning intensely, opening all possibilities, but the amount pouring out was too great. It felt as if he had opened a dam just to fill a small pot. It was a wonder how it wasn't cracking. Still, there was a silver lining in that his possibilities as a dragon had opened as he absorbed the Summer Queen. Although tied to the lower world, the draconic species was once a supernatural species equivalent to gods. The opening of that possibility was a considerable help to Yianwu. Drrrk. The imaginary world began to collapse as it was once a part of the shedding's body as well. Demonic divine dragon body is being formed. 92, 93%, 95%. However, its power didn't disappear. Yianwu activated a skill to hold on to his shaking mind. Time difference. In the slowed world, he gritted his teeth. This isn't pleasant. Just because his thinking had sped up, it didn't mean his physical pain disappeared. Rather, he felt it even more clearly because he was more focused. He felt like he was going to die. Yianwu forced himself to endure it and racked his brain. It's hard to absorb the shedding completely. If I had a bit more time, I'd try, but 0 hours 1 minute and 29 seconds _68. I have about 1 minute left at the most. I have to swallow the shedding in that time no matter what. Then, his eyes flashed sharply in the flood of information. I'll take just the core of the shedding and throw the rest away. It might have been a waste just to take 20% and throw the rest of it away, but for Yianwu, who wasn't anywhere near supernatural yet, it was an enormous amount. Wah! It was nearly impossible to pick out the core from all the vestiges of the shedding's existence. However, Yianwu didn't give up and slowed down time as much as he could to absorb the information. Within it, the life story of the shedding, no, the Monkey King was held. He became a god after being born as the king of monkeys, then became Buddha after he fell back down to the lower world. Fighting with the heavenly world and battling against the demon kings with his blood brothers. The growth of the Monkey King, laughing, crying, and walking side by side with his friends poured into Yianwu's head. There, Yianwu was able to review the 72 bian that he had. The Monkey King hadn't used the 72 bian he learned from his teacher, Sabati, simply as bian. He used it as magic, a fighting technique, or as mugong. The Monkey King was able to take it in a new direction as he mixed and combined the various methods. Yianwu was able to learn a lot of things from it. Moreover, he also learned a bit more about the inheritance that Jaicheondizong left behind, the heavenly bracket. Tien, Jaicheondizong is the Korean version of the title of Sun Wukong. From the countless information, he collected the most important sections. He felt like he could completely understand the 72 bian at this rate. No, to be exact, Yianwu was slowly becoming the Monkey King. He was synchronizing with the divine being too quickly for him to be aware. That moment, boom, Yianwu was suddenly hit by something. He looked up in surprise. Athena was standing there, larger than he remembered, with sad eyes. Don't be eaten. As she spoke, she spread her arms out and held Yianwu. You have things to do. Only then was Yianwu able to see himself. The dragon scales that had grown on his flesh shined goldenly, and his hair reached his shoulders having turned white. He couldn't check, but he felt like his eyes were probably shining a fiery gold as well. Gold and white were the symbols of the Monkey King. It seemed he was being swallowed while he was trying to swallow the shedding. He was completely drunk on power. If Athena hadn't appeared to help, what would have happened to him? He shivered and turned back to thank her. However, Athena had vanished. Where had she gone? No, how was she able to manifest in the first place? Athena is silent. He was curious, but he just shook his head and checked his body. The white hair and gold scales that were the symbol of the Monkey King were gone. Instead, he could feel a powerful strength from his body that he didn't have before. Level His level had increased strikingly. He thought that all the possibilities that he hadn't been able to digest from the Summer Queen's soul had revealed themselves. More than anything, I didn't know the 72 Bian would do something so amazing. Your understanding of the 72 Bian has increased. The proficiency has increased dramatically. Your affinity for water has deepened. Your affinity for gold has deepened. Your affinity for wood has deepened. You have gained an understanding of the superior property, 5 penances. The title, Descendant of the Monkey King, has been changed to Heir of the Jaicheondizong. You have satisfied multiple conditions and gained a clue relating to inheritance of the Jaicheondizong. Yian Wu was able to recreate the 72 Bian based on his higher understanding of the Monkey King and open the inheritance of the Jaicheondizong. The 5 signature skills the Monkey King had completed after organizing everything he learned. Nu Byukse, Yusahong, Shinmokryong, Weiomrian, Jiamkangpo. The artistic skills that separated the stem of the 72 Bian, the 5 penances, and went beyond the fields of Bian and martial studies to create new laws. Yian Wu succeeded in knowing what the 5 signature skills were, but he didn't know how to approach it. It was hard to touch based on the knowledge he already knew. However, he felt like it was possible for him to approach it slowly with the dragon's knowledge, so he shouted with satisfaction. He raised his fiery golden eyes up. 0 hours 42 minutes and 11 seconds _ 25. It was a bit tight but enough to return if he rushed. But, he thought he could do something else before he returned. There were many remains of the shedding around him. It was a waste to throw them all away. Wasn't there a way to use them as well? Organizing his thoughts, he quickly turned his body in another direction. Current awakening progress, 98%. Open hollow corner bracket finally, the god is descending. Here. Kukuku. The center of the palace began to shake intensely. With kindred's cheer, the consciousness of the bishops and diocesans expanded farther. Open hollow corner bracket Mahalbata, Tamaha. Open hollow corner bracket Mahalbata, Tamaha. To be exact, it was just the owners of the golden headband. The power that was able to bring up the Monkey King's shedding from the imaginary world. It wasn't easy to control the golden headband. Only after kindred and other bishops and diocesan bishops worked together did it move. The group unconsciousness was pulling at the golden headband. Right now, the golden headband was probably tightly wrapping around the shedding in the imaginary world. The contents pouring into the sacrificial vessel were extraordinary. It was holy power. Kindred trembled with ecstasy. Even after becoming bishops, they weren't allowed authorities and couldn't even dream of using holy power. What an exhilarating sight it was to see, real, holy power. They were all traces of the Monkey King's life. He felt overwhelmed with just this taste, so how powerful would it be when he observed it carefully? Most importantly, the shedding was just a cover. Then how powerful would the real Monkey King be? And the heavenly demon? He was able to reaffirm that everything else on the 98th floor was fake and the only real god was the heavenly demon. And, the head bishop, who will be born with a new face after accepting that shedding will be the eternal leader of our devil army. Madness flashed in Kindred's eyes. His lunatic faith was for the heavenly demon and the head bishop. If the heavenly world had the heavenly demon, the lower world had the head bishop. And both of them would honor him. He shivered, thinking about the favor of the god that would come pouring down on him. But, why isn't it ending? Kindred's eyes narrowed. The contents flowing into the vessel were just remains, the actual core of the shedding couldn't be seen. Was he still rebelling? But there would be limits to how long he could resist in his condition. It wasn't good for the process to be extended. Oh, well, narrowing his eyes, he contacted the group's subconsciousness. He was going to help them pull the shedding in himself. However, the group subconsciousness was too quiet. It wasn't supposed to be like this. They were supposed to be pulling in the golden headband. Just then, Kindred saw someone in the corner of his eyes. The person must have felt his presence too because they turned their body in his direction. Open hollow corner bracket I was just about to go see you. I guess you couldn't wait and came first. A person with black mask and clothes with wings of fire on their back. It was a familiar face. The face Kindred wanted to chew up and swallow. However, there was something different about him. Through the mask, his eyes were a burning gold color. Fiery golden eyes. It was the power that only heirs, who learned the 72 Bian to a deep extent could have. Open hollow corner bracket U. While Kindred was shocked by the unexpected incident. Kwong, his consciousness was suddenly kicked out of the group subconsciousness. He barely got himself together from the dizziness. Wondering what was happening, he tried to step forward. An intense storm was whirling in the center of the palace. It was hard to stay steady and tell up from down. Suddenly, he felt something pour down onto his face. It was sticky and uncomfortable. Reflexively, he wiped it with his hand to check. Open hollow corner bracket blood. To be exact, it was sticky blood combined with flesh. Just when he looked around with anxiety. Poopapong. The diocesans exploded like fireworks like they had been waiting. Kindred couldn't understand the unrealistic sight in front of him and screamed after a belated realization. Open hollow corner bracket cane. The vessel that was supposed to hold the shedding was flowing backwards. He didn't know how it happened, but as the core disappeared, the power that didn't have anywhere to go had exploded. The group's subconsciousness, which had been trying to control the power, was impacted, and the priests who couldn't take it were swept away. Bishops, diocesans, and the high priest. There was no ranking to death. If they couldn't take it, they died, and even if they did endure it, they were poisoned by the holy power and left in a blank state. When even the vessel exploded, the broken pieces of the Rui Bang scattered into the air. Open hollow corner bracket can. Kindred's mind exploded as well. The moment that he had been waiting for decades, for tens of years, the lunatic effort that he had put into it, had disappeared into thin air. However, there was absolutely nothing he could do. All he managed to do was hold himself up in the current of power. His body was tattered. Open hollow corner bracket. The Monkey King asked me. In front of him, Yian Wu suddenly appeared, flashing his fiery golden eyes. Open hollow corner bracket. To rip your mouth apart first. Open hollow corner bracket can. Yian Wu planted his magic bayonet into the mouth of the screaming person and spun it around. Kook, quack. Chapter 339. Descendants of the Monkey King 14. Team. HH, Yahiko, Thursdays, 7/10. Because Yian Wu was currently intangible, he didn't cut Kindred's neck physically. He had forced the power of the shedding that was still exploding onto Kindred. Open hollow corner bracket. Another shadow. It's like he's an amoeba constantly dividing itself into more cells. Yian Wu clicked his tongue, seeing Kindred's corpse scatter. It seemed there was never a time when he wasn't a shadow. 0 hours 26 minutes and 49 seconds _78. Yian Wu checked the countdown and turned around. He could see Doyle bowing with blank eyes on the floor. Open hollow corner bracket. Let's go back. Rumble. The earthquake that began in the center spread to the rest of the palace. Dust and rocks fell from the ceiling. The first people to become nervous about the toppling palace were the mercenaries who were continually being sent into the palace. Open hollow corner bracket S asterisk. Kiak. Open hollow corner bracket. Save me. Kook. They wanted to escape from the dangerous situation, but escape was impossible when they couldn't tell up from down. The undead army kept on swarming in and stepped on them. It was like elephants were stepping on ants. A god of Olympus, Thanatos, is thrilled. A god of the Chan sect, king of 7 hells, observes the dead souls calmly. A god of Aya, Nergal, nods with satisfaction. He expresses his satisfaction at the mortal being able to use the power well. A god of Diva, Sitagarba, shakes his head from side to side and watches the situation carefully. A demon of Niflheim, Hell, licks his lips with his red tongue. His body trembles from happiness. Esma Diva checks if there are any souls that will go to him. He expresses his regret that he can't do anything about the great harvest. The gods of death nod. They all speak as one. Message. The demons of death are happy. They enjoy their festival and deliver a common message. Message. Successor. The gods and demons didn't stop or hesitate to reveal messages as if they were overjoyed by the situation. The mercenaries were angry that they were just entertainment for the gods and demons of death, and they even felt helpless, not being able to do anything about it. Athena looks at you with sad eyes. There was only one god who was looking at the battle from another point of view. And, with her at the lead, other types of gods and demons began to show themselves. A god of Olympus, Ares, nods with satisfaction. A god of the Chan sect, Prince Nezha, comes to observe the situation after hearing the news. War. The gods of war and fighting began to show themselves. Here, war was spreading with death. If it was a simple fight, they wouldn't have been interested because it was just one of the many wars that occurred in the tower. A god of Asgard, Tyr, slowly puts down his book of law. He observes the situation with impartial eyes. The problem was that Yian Wu was fighting the countless number of forces alone. To be exact, it was that Yi Wu was fighting with all his subordinates, but showing an amount of firepower that no lord in history had been able to do. Maybe long ago in the past, the vampiric Lord Batory had exuded this much power. It was understandable for the gods and demons related to war to be watching so keenly. He was the first person they were interested in after the martial king. A demon of the Jia sect, Vimalasitra, nods with satisfaction. He compliments player ## for being able to stand against all these soldiers. Vimalasitra offers his authority, Gubatera. Agaris shows his discomfort, saying not to even look at what's his. All gods ignore him, all demons ignore him, Sir Nunnos is silent. Yi Wu's directory of authorities increased at a quicker pace. Open hollow corner bracket these crazy bastards. Kwong. Dr. Doom was flicked away with a loud explosion. The barrier protecting him was already in tatters, so the impact from crashing into the firm wall broke his spine. He didn't even have the strength to vomit blood anymore. Because of the continued attacks, he couldn't get a grip on himself. Corpses of magicians were piled up around him. Despair filled his eyes. And as the messages from gods and demons kept on popping up, he felt like he was going to die from frustration. Magicians believed in the natural law of what was around them. This was why many of them were atheists. They just considered the gods and demons on the 98th supernaturalists who weren't too different from normal players. Dr. Doom was one of these believers. He hated feeling like a monkey in a zoo. However, there was an old Sunbei whom he admired like a god. The creator of sword magic and the originator of demon studies along with De Roy. The one who created the Emerald Tablet, opening the path to the Philosopher's Stone. Faust. The problem was that they met as enemies. Open corner bracket how. Persistent. The two inferno sights in the air narrowed, as if in an unpleasant mood. Dr. Doom felt more dismayed as the situation went on. Boo wasn't as strong as the Faust he knew. Faust was once someone who stood against the Summer Queen. His magic wasn't merely this level, he could create miracles. It was clear that something was missing from his memory. However, even so, it was still there. The power that forced everything around it to bow down. The blue eyes that looked as if they could swallow demons. His signature hadn't faded. Open corner bracket become. Fertilizer. 4. Master. The space opened, and a large hand covered Dr. Doom. He didn't have any strength to resist anymore. He just didn't understand why Faust was the subordinate of a mere player. Also, it suddenly occurred to him that the reason why he didn't get a particularly good divination that day. It was most likely that it was the end of the line for him. Teacher. His thoughts ended there. SSS is. Boo slowly turned in another direction after swallowing Dr. Doom's soul and recovering some of his knowledge and memory. The cave was collapsing. He had spent more time than he expected. Now, as his great master had commanded, he had to proceed with the last of his orders. Open corner bracket wake up. On Boo's command, all the undead connected to Boo cried up at the sky. Chech. Void descended where Boo disappeared and erased Dr. Doom's corpse. Stones came tumbling down. Osiris observes the battlefield. The destruction of the cave sped up. The players who had been trying to stay to finish the fight felt danger. Khan and Ivan were among them. Clang. The two people fought intensely like they weren't father and son and turned their bodies in the opposite direction after one last clang, shooting aura in all directions. Cashing. Quack. The two bishops, who were watching Khan, plopped down on the floor before they knew it. While their attention was somewhere else because of the sudden issue with the ceremony, they were hit without mercy. Khan took back the blood sword he was holding and turned back around. Open hollow corner bracket let's stop here for today. Open hollow corner bracket Khan. Ivan shouted in a tearful voice at his son's cold tone. However, all that came in response was Khan's cold gaze. Open hollow corner bracket don't say my name with that dirty mouth. You don't have the right. Open hollow corner bracket do you still hate me? Open hollow corner bracket hate. Of course there's nothing like that. Khan scoffed. Open hollow corner bracket you need to have expectations for someone in order to hate them. Open hollow corner bracket Khan. Ivan's voice was filled with sadness as he said Khan's name. He was famed on the battlefield as the Iron Lion, but in front of his son, he was just a bad father who couldn't stand tall. It was unpleasant for Khan to see that side of his father. Open hollow corner bracket stop pretending. Didn't you expect this the moment you threw mom away? He felt disgusted watching the perpetrator act like the victim. Khan walked away. Void settled around him and hid his presence. Shannon and the Bone Dragon quietly stepped back as well. Ivan ended up turning back with his hand stretched out in the emptiness. Then, he began to run. His subordinates were probably still in the cave. He had to save those he could. Khan stopped in the darkness and watched his father's back as he moved away. His shoulders were small, and his back was curved. He didn't see the father who used to be a large umbrella to protect him and give him piggyback rides anymore. Open hollow corner bracket Khan. As if sensing Khan's complex thoughts, Nike appeared and hugged him with his two wings. The warm fire calmed down his confused mind. Open hollow corner bracket how does a guy like Kane have a kid like you? He joked as he quickly began to move again. He didn't have to worry about getting lost. The lich that Yin Wu commanded had been sending him messages, so his escape route was already guaranteed. How much stronger did Kane get in that time? It probably took quite a bit of time to build up all these undead. Was he aiming to become a lord? But he also had potential to become a supernaturalist. Moreover, the messages from gods and demons that filled up the cave were recommending an apostle position for him. He's amazing in many ways. While Khan was feeling baffled about Yin Wu, the void suddenly disappeared, and he could feel a bright light. As if it had been waiting, the cave collapsed and completely disappeared. The mountain vibrated throughout. Khan could see Yin Wu already outside of the cave. And Doyle, who was sleeping in Yin Wu's arms. Open hollow corner bracket Doyle. Khan quickly dashed to where Yin Wu was. Victoria discovered him and spread her arms out with a smile to hug him, but Khan subconsciously avoided her and reached Yin Wu. Open hollow corner bracket hey. Victoria shouted, having hugged the air, but Khan didn't hear it as he looked at Doyle. Doyle was quietly sleeping, like he didn't know what had happened around him. Khan quickly reviewed the 72 Bian he had. Bian was what made Doyle into a revenant, the condition of being a puppet, so he thought there could be a way to fix him through Bian. Shiver. Just then, Doyle's eyelashes fluttered. As his eyes opened slowly, he saw Khan in front of him. Open hollow corner bracket hung. Open hollow corner bracket Doyle. Khan hugged Doyle. He felt apologetic for making Doyle suffer through everything, and he was grateful that he opened his eyes again. Open hollow corner bracket the F****, why are you being so cringy? Doyle tried to push Khan away, unfamiliar with this sort of behavior from him, but Khan didn't let go. Victoria, who had been sulking, approached them with a warm smile. The Ice King nodded in relief. Like that, all the commotion ended. No, it looked like it did. Open hollow corner bracket huck. It's a relief, isn't it, master? Nike wiped his tears with his wing and turned his head to Yin Wu because he wasn't reacting. Open hollow corner bracket master. Yin Wu's gaze was fixed on the air in front of him, not Khan and Doyle. Athena looks at you with sad eyes. There were many gods and demons looking at him. After this battle, the gods and demons of death seemed to be accepting him as the successor of the Black King, and the gods and demons of death took an interest in him. His list of authorities exceeded 800. But of all the gazes, there was one that was different. Not a gaze filled with greed or rapacity but of sadness. Why, he had defeated the devil army and saved Khan and Doyle. Now, since everything was taken care of, he could move on to Tartarus and help Hades. Why wasn't Athena's gaze changing? Did something else happen in Tartarus? But Athena wouldn't be able to know because the view of Tartarus was blocked from the heavenly world. Just then, something flashed through his head. Something he didn't want to consider. Open hollow corner bracket Khan. Open hollow corner bracket what? Khan looked back at Yin Wu from calming Doyle down and tilted his head. Yin Wu's voice was strangely cold. Open hollow corner bracket step back. Open hollow corner bracket what are you? Open hollow corner bracket step back. Yin Wu shouted in a tone unlike himself. Khan stood up before he knew it and fell away from Doyle. Victoria and the Ice King stepped back as well, feeling something wasn't right. Doyle just looked at Yin Wu. There was a smile on his face, but no emotions could be felt from it. Like a doll. Open hollow corner bracket until when do you plan on acting? Yin Wu glared at Doyle. Open hollow corner bracket head bishop. Chapter 340 Descendants of the Monkey King 15. Team. Yahiko, Thursdays 8/10. Open hollow corner bracket I opened my eyes because I heard something strange while I was sleeping. It seems like things are a mess. Doyle smiled bitterly as he looked around him. The curse of the heavenly demon had ended up messing many things up. If only he didn't fall asleep to transform, things wouldn't have gone so awry. Open hollow corner bracket anyways. I feel it every time, but I really want to do something about those dragon eyes. Thanks to them, I missed seeing Heaven Wing's daughter. Just then, the aura around Doyle completely changed. A heavy and intense wavelength extended around him. Qua. It had Doyle's face, but it wasn't Doyle. It was another being with Doyle's face. Black demonic energy wrapped around him, and his hair turned white. His eyes flashed red. Open hollow corner bracket head bishop. Where is Doyle? Khan, gritting his teeth, glared at the head bishop. He was stopping himself from running at him. Open hollow corner bracket I don't know. Where is he? The head bishop smiled lightly. Something disconnected in Khan's head at that moment. Open hollow corner bracket you son of AB asterisk asterisk. Boom, Khan threw his body at the head bishop. Blood poured out of his cut hand and took the form of a sword. Open angle bracket flow of blood close angle bracket. It was the signature skill of blood sword. It didn't just end with many Bian combined to take the form of a sword, but it amplified attack power by creating wavelengths when it was swung, and it could even attack enemies that were far away. But in the eyes of the head bishop, it only looked like child's play. He put his hands behind his back and lightly rolled his feet. Boom, but the result wasn't light at all. All of the mountains trembled, and cracks began to appear on the surface. Khan, who was running at him, was blown away. The Ice King and Victoria were swept away as well while they had been waiting for a chance to attack. Dust clouds descended around then, and as if that wasn't enough, the space began to twist. In there, the head bishop rubbed his creaking hands and feet. Open hollow corner bracket him, I can't rein in my strength because I'm not used to my body yet. It was why he needed the power of the shedding. He lightly clicked his tongue. What he wanted wasn't simply to become a divine being. He had wanted the power to erase the curse engraved upon his soul. However, his long preparations went up in flames. He felt tired of thinking about whether there would be anything to replace the shedding or if he had to look for the remains of another face. There wasn't much time left for him. Or do I really have to pull in their power? The head bishop realized that the guy who gave him all this trouble wasn't among those blown away. He clasped his hands behind his back again and lifted his head. The space moved again, removing the white dust clouds, revealing Yan Wu high up in the air with his wings of fire spread apart. The head bishop realized that hundreds of Rui Bang pieces were circling around him. They were what used to be the sacrificial vessel. Ownership of them had gone over to Yan Wu. Open hollow corner bracket are you going to seal me with this? How amusing. The head bishop laughed lightly and took a step forward. Although he was in Doyle's small body, an enormous presence was still emitted from him like he was a giant. But, gulp, he paused in the middle of dashing to Yan Wu. Blood was vomiting from his mouth. Open hollow corner bracket oh, dear. Is this too much? The disharmony of soul and body. Doyle's vessel was still not enough to hold the head bishop's great soul. But because he had still forced it in. He had probably only lasted this long because this was Doyle's body. A body like Doyle's, which was abnormally advanced with divine abilities, wasn't easy to obtain. Wee. Just then, the pieces of the Rui Bang around the head bishop began to whirl around. 72 Bian Bong, in. Kwang. The pieces pattered down, various Bian were used, and Bu appeared through a new space at some point and was adding on more magic. The number of attacks increased. It felt as if the 5 mountains would collapse. The head bishop let go of one hand behind his back and waved it in front of him. Like he was pushing aside curtains, the pieces attacking him were swept away. It was an unbelievable divine energy. Open hollow corner bracket this. He clenched his left hand into a fist. Open hollow corner bracket is how you do it. And extended it in the air in front of him. Quang, demonic energy wrapped around his fist and exploded. The explosion happened right in front of Yan Wu. It was a shock that made his body feel like it was being beat up. Yan Wu was only able to endure it after protecting himself with his wings of fire. The tens of layers of barriers Bu made shattered with the explosion. The head bishop was too strong. How was he able to handle such strength with an unfamiliar body like that? For a moment, Yan Wu thought of the martial king and the summer queen. The head bishop was as strong as them, like he had expected. If he was in his real body, what would have happened to him? At the same time, he had another thought. How was Zheng Wu able to fight against this guy? While he was falling to the ground, he barely restored his wings of fire and caught his balance. And, pat, with blink activated, he reached the head bishop. At the same time, he exploded his condensed black aura. Krrng, the destructiveness of the wave of fire made the head bishop shiver. Surprise spread across his face as he barely escaped it. Open hollow corner bracket I heard a lot about you, and I see you're more amazing than the rumors. The 6 new stars. How can they put you in the same group? Yes. You should amount to this much to be able to get in my way. Yes. Of course. The head bishop stretched out his hand and bent forward. Open hollow corner bracket. All right, then shall we see if you can stop this, too. His hand quickly split through the air. Space was cut and what was in his way was swept away. Poopapong. Yin Wu blocked the head bishop's strikes with black aura. It was a speedy attack that was hard to follow with his eyes, but draconic eyes, extrasensory perception, and time difference helped to fill in for what he lacked. Still, the head bishop had the upper hand. Yin Wu had become stronger after swallowing the shedding, but he hadn't been able to learn the 72 Bian's tricks and the heaven bracket yet, so there were limits to what he could do. While the intense battle was occurring, pat, a shadow opened behind Yin Wu, and his subordinates jumped out. Shannon climbed high into the sky atop the bone dragon and spewed out poison breath. Hanryong and Rebecca aimed for the head bishop's blind spots. Bu flicked his finger and drew different magic circles in the air. In the opened void, magic attacks came pouring out. It was the power that made the alliance into nothing. Quack. Open hollow corner bracket. What an amusing thing you have there. However, the head bishop was still relaxed, like he was out for a stroll. When he rolled his feet again, the earth suddenly shot up and blocked the bone dragon from moving. While it hesitated, trying to catch its balance, the head bishop didn't miss his opportunity and hit the air in front of him. Quang! The bone dragon's right wing exploded. While the large body pitched towards the ground, Shannon jumped and tried to attack the head bishop. However, open hollow corner bracket. Is it there? The head bishop stretched out his thumb and middle finger to draw a line mid-air. Steps appeared in the air and cut Shannon's body. Open corner bracket. No way. Shannon disappeared with those words. Open hollow corner bracket. One down. The head bishop smiled with satisfaction and flicked away Vigrid, which was aimed at his neck. In that steady position, he turned his body around and reached out with his left hand. Two swords shot into them like magnets. Rebecca and Hanryong's faces hardened. Open hollow corner bracket. 3 more to go. He closed his left hand. The superior quality swords cracked. While their pieces blew in the air, demonic energy exploded once again to fling away Rebecca and Hanryong. He said he wasn't familiar with this body, but he had already eliminated 3 of Yin Wu's subordinates. Open hollow corner bracket and the last one. He flicked his finger to where Bu was. Talk. Open angle bracket space disconnection close angle bracket. As the space twisted, the inferno sights in the air disappeared. The head bishop blocked off any interference from the outside. Open hollow corner bracket. You have some good subordinates, but they're nothing in front of such overwhelming power. He smiled looking at Yin Wu, who was still fighting against his right hand. Open hollow corner bracket. Right. Quang. All of Yin Wu's skills were crushed when the head bishop swung his sword again. Yin Wu was pushed back far away. There was a trench in the ground where he was propelled backward. Blood dripped from the hand that was holding Vigrid. There was too much of a gap in their strengths. Yin Wu painstakingly felt how great of an existence the 9 kings were. He felt as if he had met a great city wall. Open hollow corner bracket. Just give up. You can't defeat me. Still, I'll offer you a suggestion. I'll give you a bishop position. Serve the heavenly demon. Doyle clasped his hands behind his back with a smile. Open hollow corner bracket. No. If you help me to become another face of the heavenly demon, this position will be yours. It's a shame the others died, but if you all fill those positions, it will be a great blessing for us. The head bishop took a liking to Yin Wu and Khan while he watched them during the ceremony. If things worked out, he genuinely wanted to give them the head bishop position. Of course, Yin Wu wasn't one to be tempted by such words. Open corner bracket. What's that crazy bastard going on about? Open corner bracket. It's because he's the leader of the lunatic believers. But he's too strong. I heard that monster's the only one who's still growing among the 9 kings. It seems the rumors were correct. Hanryong and Shannon appeared behind Yin Wu and muttered. Because they were undead, they didn't die, but because their existences had almost been extinguished, their bodies were a lot fainter than before. Rebecca, who appeared quietly above them, didn't say much, but her face was determined. If I can take in heaven bracket, if I can absorb the strength of the rest of the shedding, will I be able to catch up? Yin Wu quickly checked the area between him and the head bishop. The head bishop was pushing himself into Doyle's body. Yin Wu thought there might be a way to attack his openings. He soon arrived at a conclusion. There is. He tried getting into form again to fight the head bishop. His body screamed in pain, but he forced his sword up. He gritted his teeth at the fact that he couldn't move his hand. But I can't use heaven bracket immediately. Then what if I activated authorities? Will that work? The answer came soon. No. Then, if I can amplify my strength temporarily by accepting all the authorities. The answer this time was. It works. The gods and messages began to send Yi and Wu messages after reading his thoughts. Thanatos looks at you expectantly. Nergal suggests you examine his authority. Osiris is expectant. Ares is expectant. Prince Neja is expectant. Vimalasitra makes a suggestion to you. Agaras screams, saying not to look at what's his. All godly societies ignore him. All demonic societies ignore him. They want an answer from you. Messages popped up endlessly. Current possible authorities, 925. If he accepted all of them, he was sure that he'd be able to fight head-to-head with the head bishop temporarily. Then there wasn't any time to waste. Open hollow corner bracket Haa. Yi and Wu breathed in deeply and woke up the senses in his body. Open hollow corner bracket Hup. He gripped Vigrid harder. 900 great beings extended their hands to Yi and Wu as if they had been waiting. You have gained Thanatos's authority, Night of Harvest. You have gained Nergal's authority, Hogubiolsong. You have gained Vimalasitra's authority, Gubadera. You have gained Prince Neja's authority, King of 10,000 soldiers. You are obtaining too many authorities. Your body cannot withstand them. It is suggested that you stop contracting the remaining possible apostle positions. Warning. You are obtaining too many authorities. It is possible your body may be destroyed. Warning. You are obtaining too. Authorities symbolize the powers of the beings. Crunch, crunch, holy powers that didn't align with each other collided. Many voices rang in his ear. However, that much power filled his body. Vigrid cried out. Yi and Wu opened his draconic eyes authority and combined heaven bracket with it. Then, he brought down Vigrid powerfully. Third dragon body awakening. All authorities released. Wave of fire, heaven bracket, lightning strike. Krrng, a storm of fire, lightning, and holy power fell where the head bishop was. It was too much for even the head bishop to handle. Open hollow corner bracket what the? He was able to avoid the brunt of the lightning strike, but he was still injured, burns scattered across his body. Open hollow corner bracket you heretic. You dare, to me. The head bishop gathered his demonic energy with a crumpled face. He was worried his body would fail him, but he couldn't let Yi and Wu get away with it. However, open hollow corner bracket what? Strangely, he couldn't use his body. He glared at Yi and Wu with wide eyes. Open hollow corner bracket sorry, but it's over. Although Yi and Wu was sitting on the ground from overexertion, he snickered at the head bishop. The head bishop could feel a small but deep injury on the back of his head. It was an injury that didn't hurt his body. However, the location of the injury was where his soul and body were connected. Open hollow corner bracket just. When? The head bishop turned back. Khan was gasping as he glared at him. Blood dripped down his right hand. Open angle bracket blood bomb close angle bracket. A skill that condensed blood. While the head bishop was busy with the lightning strike, Khan had quickly cut his veins and thrown his blood. Was this what they were after in the first place? The head bishop had a lot to say, but he fell over. His soul was kicked back to its original location. Plop. Yi and Wu was finally able to pass out only after seeing the head bishop fall. Yellow sparks of holy power jumped around his body. Chapter 341 Creation of Kainite 1. Team. HH, Yahiko, Thursdays 9/10. Iron Lion Clan. Are you allies or enemies? Kreutz could see a group of defeated soldiers while he and the illusion knightage soared through the sky of the 20th stage. The group of soldiers was filled with injured people. All their armor was crushed, and the players were barely moving, leaning on each other. He had already seen many like them, so he was just about to pass by when Kreutz saw a flag flailing lifelessly in the wind above them. The greatest mercenary group, the Iron Lion clan, looked like a mess. It was hard, even for the illusion knightage, to fight against them. If their leader, Iron Lion, wasn't a mercenary, they would have been considered one of the new emerging clans a long while ago. But they were in such a pathetic state. Considering how they brought along many of their players, it seemed that about 80% of them had disappeared. It was near total destruction. The Iron Lion Ivan looked at Kreutz with sharp eyes. He acted as if he was about to raise his sword. Kreutz swallowed. It seemed that an injured beast was still a beast. Ivan's murderous aura wasn't normal. No, is he just more sensitive because he's that hurt? Then there was no need to touch him. Ivan was a sunbae he admired, so Kreutz replied politely. We would have met as enemies, but it seems there is no need to fight. Ivan curved a corner of his mouth. I did hear rumors that the illusion Knightage is attempting to recruit the hoarder. I guess they were true. I don't think there's any reason for us to explain ourselves. Kreutz replied firmly. It was the attitude of someone who was always polite. All right, then I don't have anything to say either. However, keep this in mind. Looking at Kreutz, Ivan growled with sharp eyes. Next time, you'll be my prey too. Wag! A fierce fighting aura spread from him. He had the eyes of a predator looking at something that invaded his territory. However, Kreutz also had experience on the battlefield, although it might not have amounted to Ivan's. That kind of threat was nothing. But there was something he was curious about. Don't you feel cringy when you talk like that? Quote. Anyways, I understand your stance. I'll deliver what you said to our regiment leader. Ivan frowned, dissatisfied, and was about to shout something when. Krrng. Far away on the mountains, there was a large explosion. The sky was turning yellow. Looks like something happened. I must be on my way. Goodbye. Kreutz pulled the reins of his flying dragon and began to fly again. The illusion Knightage followed right behind him. The hundreds of wyverns flying together in the sky was a sight to see. Ivan ground his teeth looking at them and urged his subordinates again. We shall also quickly return to base. When Kreutz arrived at the 5 mountains of penances, he was greeted with destroyed mountains that could hardly be called a place for training in Yi and Wu, who was fainting while exuding powerful holy power. Open hollow corner bracket Kane. Open hollow corner bracket Hey. Wake up. Victoria and the Ice King frantically ran towards Yi and Wu. Khan didn't know what to do while he was holding Doyle. Kreutz jumped down to the ground without landing his dragon. Open hollow corner bracket It's dangerous if things go wrong. Please move aside for a moment. Victoria's face stiffened at Kreutz's sudden interference. The Ice King burst up and blocked Kreutz. A cold aura swirled around him. They were wary of Kreutz and the knights he brought. They could be a party of the alliance that was after Khan. Open hollow corner bracket What is the illusion Knightage, no, the fantasy regiment doing here? Open hollow corner bracket It seems like there's a misunderstanding, but we're not from the alliance. Our regiment leader is friends with the hoarder. Haven't you heard? Open hollow corner bracket The regiment leader in Kane. Of course they hadn't heard about it. Yi and Wu never spoke about his personal life to others. As the Ice King looked at Kreutz with more suspicion, he became frustrated. Open hollow corner bracket I'll explain the details later. However, time is of the essence right now. The sickness of the hoarder seems to be a holy fever, and if it's not treated right away, he'll be in danger. Please step aside. Kreutz's face hardened when he saw Yi and Wu's fever. The sparks flinging from Yi and Wu's body became worse, and it was hard for even Victoria to approach him. The heat exuding from his body was so intense that his body turned red. Not knowing what to do, Victoria shook her head. It was beyond her capabilities. The Ice King recalled his aura and stepped aside. Kreutz quickly ran to Yi and Wu and began to examine him. Open hollow corner bracket Oh, dear. Has it already gone to his magic power source? The price for accepting over 900 authorities at once was too high. Authorities weren't simple like skills were. Accepting an authority meant accepting the will of a god into your body. It was difficult to have just one, but hundreds. It was something that a mere mortal should never do. It was a wonder how his soul wasn't crushed. If Yi and Wu hadn't increased his potential by swallowing the Monkey King's shedding, he would never have been able to attempt it. He had succeeded in taking the authorities, but some aftereffects still remained. Something remained where the gods had touched him and left. All the remnants collided, and his body had overheated. The holy fever from his body was reaching his internal organs and even his magic power organ. If his fever wasn't reduced soon, he could lose his magic power or worse. Kreutz pulled out his holy sword Zulfikar and planted it in the ground. Kissing the stone in the middle, he closed his eyes and recited a spell. The stone shined a yellow light and turned into amber. Amber was a symbol of health. As divine power descended upon Yi and Wu's body, the heat began to settle down. The Ice King and Victoria looked on with surprised eyes. Open hollow corner bracket What did you do? His fever is subsiding. The Ice King had attempted to use his energy to cool Yi and Wu down, and Victoria had attempted healing magic as well. However, Yi and Wu's heat just became worse. But it was shocking that he was getting better with such an interesting power. Open hollow corner bracket It seems like divine power. Victoria replied instead as she examined it. Open hollow corner bracket divine power. Open hollow corner bracket yes. Divine power. It's good for self-recovery and vitality. And it's the direct opposite of demonic energy. Open hollow corner bracket is it like holy power? Open hollow corner bracket it's similar, but the concept is a bit different. Holy power is something that must be given by gods, but divine power is a radiating power. It's like how demonic energy and monstrous energy seem similar but are different. The Ice King smiled bitterly. Open hollow corner bracket I'm even more confused. As a martial artist, the only power he knew well about was magic power. The fundamental strength that advanced martial arts. Open hollow corner bracket details about power are what magicians or alchemists deal with. However, it's rare to see an item with divine power. How interesting. Victoria thought of the artifacts in Anastasia's storage room. They had monstrous energy and could turn into monsters at any moment. However, the holy sword Zulfikar was the direct opposite of them. What kind of face would Anastasia make if she saw his sword? Open hollow corner bracket I've extinguished the fire. Just then, Kreutz took his hands off of Yian-Wu and turned back to where the Ice King and Victoria were. Open hollow corner bracket however, the holy fever hasn't disappeared completely. He needs somewhere to rest and recover. Do you know any superior healers? Victoria thought of Yian-Wu's subordinate, Bu, first. Since he wasn't the owner but could use adamantine nova, wouldn't he be able to do it? However, from some time ago, he wasn't appearing. Was the damage he received from the head bishop too great? Another person flashed through her mind. Anastasia. Wouldn't her teacher, who had mastered all kinds of spells for 1,000 years, be able to do something? Khan signaled that Doyle's temporary treatment was finished. Doyle looked as if he was comfortably sleeping. Open hollow corner bracket please follow me. Victoria took the lead. If I read my fortune this year, I think it would have said, you'll have trouble because of your disciple. Anastasia wrinkled her forehead and breathed in from her pipe. Wanting to relieve some stress, she had been spending some time with the beautiful children when her disciple suddenly burst in the room. She urged her to heal the guy she didn't even want to see anymore and some strange-looking bum. Anastasia wanted to tell her to F*** off, but Seasongnum. Seeing her disciple kneeling, she couldn't do that. Even though she was pathetic, she was still her disciple. Please do this favor for me. What right do you have to? I'll pay the price. Frisia, who was quietly watching the situation, spoke up. She was still lounging around Anastasia, not returning to buy the table. Anastasia narrowed her eyes. Do you know what that means? Trust is crucial to a merchant. HMPH. I think you broke that rule once. But whatever. Anastasia snorted and held out her hand to Victoria. Hand it over. Victoria gave her the adamantine nova without any resistance. Anastasia frowned, seeing the contract that was still engraved on the adamantine nova. Normally, it would take months to release it, but swipe. When she rubbed it with her lance, a layer of it was cut off, and the contract naturally disappeared with it. She had forced it off. The adamantine nova shined with a blue light after receiving monstrous energy from Anastasia. A light incomparable to when Victoria used it flashed, and it began to rotate. Wah! White light descended to the floor where Yian-Wu and Doyle were lying down. Anastasia bit her pipe and watched what happened. Smoke filled the room. Khan bowed to Frisia. There's no need to thank me. Like you, Kane is an important person we sponsor. If something goes wrong with him, we'll suffer great losses. And we've been watching Foxy Tail for some time, so you can just think of it as an investment. Anastasia scoffed from next to her. HMPH. I'm doing all the work, but you're taking all the rewards. That's why one's popularity is important. Frisia shot back a lesson to Anastasia and smiled bitterly at Khan. And we aired on some things too. Quote. Khan looked at her with a questioning face, but Frisia didn't say anything. She just smiled faintly. Just then, Doyle began to rustle around. Khan quickly ran to him. Anastasia added an explanation. I don't know what happened, but his soul was in a state of suspended animation for quite a while, so he's weak. I'll look for a way for him to recover, so keep that in mind. How long will it take for him to open his eyes? HMPH. If I knew that, I'd be a god. Do you think I'd be playing around here in the middle of nowhere? Seasongnum. Victoria shouted with a red face. Anastasia replied with an annoyed voice. 5 days at the most. 2 days at the least. Then, she left the room. Khan thanked Anastasia as well and tightly held onto Doyle's hand as if telling him to hang in there. Victoria had said that it was a miracle Doyle was alive and that it was a wonder how his soul wasn't crushed or kicked out of his body when the head bishop's large soul was in it. However, Khan realized that was what Doyle had been aiming for. Foxy tail. Like a fox, Doyle was extremely smart from a young age. He might have been preparing for it since he was chosen to become the head bishop's vessel. He must have believed that someday, someone would rescue him. Wasn't that an indicator of how much he trusted his brother? Defeat it, no matter what. That was all Khan could say to Doyle. Then, he looked at Yi and Wu, who was laying down next to Doyle. Khan's eyes were shaking while he saw the heat around Yi and Wu. You wake up too, then I'll decide to be your servant or not. Like how I found my brother, you should find yours. That was what he wanted to say. Chapter 342 Creation of Kaini 2. Team. Yahiko, Thursdays 10/10. In the night filled with darkness. What are you doing here looking pathetic? Nocturne and Twice turned their heads from the campfire at the voice that came from behind them. You came. We were just warming up the alcohol. Haha, you came right on time. Twice smiled and extended his arms out for a hug. He had a bottle of alcohol in one hand. The Ice King looked at Twice and the bottle and pressed Twice's forehead away with his finger, avoiding his hug. Get your creepy face away from me first. How many times have I said that your voice will actually change if you speak like that? Tisk, you're talking like an old person. Twice pouted. It wasn't an expression that fit an old man with a serious appearance. Crunch, crunch, his face and body twisted, transforming his height and size. The wrinkled skin disappeared and showed the smooth skin of a young woman. She looked to be in her mid-20s. The look that didn't match the old man's face now looked cute on her. How many people would know that the famous S-rank mercenary known as a cold-blooded murderer was actually this talkative girl? You're no fun. I could say the same thing. Why are you going around with that creepy man's face that doesn't even fit you? Because it's dangerous for a pretty girl like me to go around alone. The Ice King shook his head looking at Twice. Still, the smile didn't leave his face. Twice, who had a friendly and bright personality, sometimes felt like his granddaughter. You've arrived. Nocturne bowed when the Ice King sat down. The Ice King was about to nod when Twice babbled on, sitting right next to him. Grandpa, what now? Punish Nocturne for me. It was a familiar scene. The Ice King chuckled. Did he leave without you again? Exactly. Geez. She said something about how he left without her when the battle began and she ended up having to move with strange men. She said that she suffered while helping them. After the attack on Walpurgisnacht, Atran's mercenaries all scattered, but these three moved together. The three were all individual mercenaries who weren't affiliated anywhere, and they didn't have any work, so there wasn't particularly a need to separate. And strangely, they got along well. The Ice King was an elder who knew how to work with others, and Nocturne was the type who quietly did what he needed to do. Twice's personality was a bit light, but she never hurt anyone. They were able to get along well without interfering with each other's business. Because they liked to travel and eat delicacies, it was even better. Twice revealing her identity proved that they became close to each other. The team moved throughout the tower and eventually came down to the 20th floor because of the Ice King. Then, the Ice King ended up working with Yi and Wu, and Nocturne split off and went solo because he wanted a challenge. It was understandable that Twice whined, saying she felt wronged. The Ice King didn't say much because he wasn't exactly innocent, either, and patted her back. Tisk. Dissatisfied, she shut her pouting mouth. The Ice King found himself laughing. Twice glanced at Nocturne occasionally while she was babbling. However, Nocturne didn't react. Of course she would become annoyed. There's nothing more annoying than a man who can't catch on quickly, the Ice King murmured as he chuckled. Regardless, Nocturne waited for the two of them to finish speaking and spoke to the Ice King. Sir, have you still not found your answer? Nocturne shook his head heavily. I see. That's tough. After hearing from his teacher, the Martial King, that he was excommunicated from the village, he always lived with an emptiness in his heart. That was the reason he looked for things to stimulate him. Eating delicacies, traveling to famous places, and challenging the strong. Still, he never felt satisfied. Right, you said you were an orphan, Yes, although, I don't remember. Nocturne had no memory of when he was younger than 10 years old. When he woke up, he found himself in front of the One-Horn tribe's village and became the Martial King's disciple after sparking his curiosity. Then what about looking for your past? If you know where you were born and how you grew up, wouldn't things be better? Your lost memory might be eating at your head. I thought of that too. I guess you weren't able to find it. Since it's this kind of world. I suppose so. The Ice King was also an orphan. There were many people in the tower with similar pasts. Tell us your story instead. My story? Ah, you want me to tell you about your junior? Nocturne nodded. He heard that his old teacher had a new disciple. And he had seen him once. At the time, he felt that the guy was different from the sword god and himself. The sword god was chased away because of his greed, and he was thrown away because he didn't have any direction. And the new disciple, he was burning, he had put himself into a fire and was flaring up himself. Was he self-destructing or shining? Or was it both? Whatever it was, Nocturne had a strong impression from his hubei and looked into news of him even when they were apart. Becoming the 6 new stars, fighting with Triton, and many others. And because the Ice King had been with his junior, he was curious about what kind of person he was, how he thought, and how he lived. His junior had something he didn't have, so he thought it might help. Kane, he's an amusing child, the Ice King grinned thinking of Yi and Wu. It was for a short while, but he was as impressive as his teacher. He almost wanted to continue with him. Although he wasn't able to see Yi and Wu wake up, he believed that Yi and Wu would get up soon. The Ice King laughed, seeing Twice look at him with shining eyes like Nocturne was, and began to tell his tale. Nergal suggests you serve him. He advises that only he can control death properly. Osiris holds out his hand. Ares strongly suggests you become his servant. Amun gulps while looking at you. Vimalasitra whispers. Cernunnos is silent. A god from an unknown world wants you. Yi and Wu couldn't find himself in the flood of endless messages. A message has arrived from Agaras. Message. Don't fall for anything. You are mine. A message has arrived from Agaras. Message. Me, the Duke of the East. You're fated to become Agares' subordinate. Answer me. Things were whispering in his ear. To accept them. To become their servant. Some screamed out loud, and some tried to hold him with their hands. Too many voices rang at once. They all said what they wanted to, and it sounded like a buzzing beehive. He couldn't understand a thing. It was hard to deal with the interference of the gods and demons from the channelings. If it wasn't for his cold-blooded trait, what was remaining of his mind probably would have been destroyed as well. There wasn't much of it remaining in the first place. It was faint, like a firefly in front of the sun. The holy fever that was burning up Yi and Wu was the result of it. The injuries that countless gods left in him were eating away at his body. No, they were messing up his mind. Open hollow corner bracket. You said you were the brother of Heaven Wing when you only amounted to this much. And you swallowed me, ha, how funny. You should just die if you're going to be like this. Just then, there was a voice that pierced through all the buzzing. It was a familiar voice. But he couldn't recall whose it was. Who was it? The Summer Queen. Open hollow corner bracket. Hey. Get up. Are you gonna be lazy like this? I like playing, but you shouldn't laze around. You need to keep your promise, The next voice was definitely the voice of the Monkey King's shedding. But how? They were beings that were gone from the world after he absorbed them. They shouldn't have been able to speak. Was it just a hallucination? Or, a nameless someone begins to block off the rambling gods' voices. Most gods argue. A nameless someone snorts. A nameless someone raises their middle finger at the demons that are glaring at them. Many demons threaten them. A nameless someone taunts them, telling them to bring it on. Most channelings have been forced closed. Currently connected channelings. 4. 1. Hermes God, Olympus. 2. Athena God, Olympus. 3. Agaras Demon, Infernal. 4. Hundant Demon, Gia Sect. Vimalasitra has reconnected. Demon, unaffiliated. Cernunnos has reconnected. God, unaffiliated. There are currently 6 connected channelings. Yi and Wu felt like his headache subsided as if someone had splashed cold water on him. The blessings of the gods settled down, and his fever began to cool. His mind became clearer. Who is it? He knew that someone had helped him. It seemed there were 2 of them, based on the messages. Who was able to forcefully disconnect the channelings? He thought of the voices he heard, but that was impossible, so he only became more curious. Are the only additional beings Vimalasitra and Cernunnos? Vimalasitra was one of the top 3 demon kings within the Gia sect. He was the king of kings of Asura. There were legends that he fought against the most famous lightning god in Deva, Indra. Recently, he seemed to be very interested in him, and he had appeared again after the channelings were forcefully closed. If he was separated from his original society, he would become prey for his enemies. Why had he suddenly left? The same went for Cernunos. He hadn't shown himself because of his resentment about reviving Rebecca, but had appeared again. With a direct connection at that. Was it related to why Rebecca had grown quiet? With those thoughts, Yin Wu began to open his eyes again. Waik. Anastasia was standing in a disorderly attitude with one knee popped out, smoking her pipe. There were 9 will-o'-the-wisps behind her. Shish. Everyone's sleeping, so don't talk. Yin Wu was about to greet her when he realized it was night and shut his mouth. Anyways, Anastasia narrowed her eyes. What are you? He wanted to ask what she meant, but Anastasia was first. How are you able to be with so many gods and demons? And even with gods from another world who cannot approach ours. Chapter 343 Creation of Kaini 3. What are gods and demons? Why are they tied to the 98th floor when they've surpassed mortal limits? Countless people asked that question and tried to find that answer, but never could. However, one thing was for certain. There were more gods and demons than those who sent messages to the lower world from the 98th floor. Sometimes, gods from other worlds came knocking at our door. There was nothing revealed about the secret of gods and demons on the 98th floor. All that was known was that Alpharon, who was cutting off the heavenly world and the lower world on the 77th floor, knew something. Because of the situation, there was nothing about outer gods from other worlds, either. No, there is something. Yin Wu felt his connection with Bu clear up. Faust, the great mage who created the Philosopher's Stone with the Emerald Tablet based on what information the outer god, Mephistopheles, gave him. That meant he was a player who contacted an outer god for the first time. But though Bu knew who he was now, he hadn't recovered all of his memories. He didn't know how he made a deal with an outer god. All Yin Wu could hope for was that he'd remember something soon because his memories were returning at a quick pace. But an outer god had approached him. There was definitely something about it in the messages. It was faint, but it felt familiar. Then had an outer god approached him through Bu? Why? Anastasia was looking at Yin Wu with squinted eyes. Foxfire floated threateningly around her. Yin Wu didn't have any choice but to tell the truth. I don't know. News of Yin Wu waking up quickly spread among his companions. Hey, you woke up, are you feeling better? Khan and Victoria burst through the door in the middle of the night. Kreutz quietly followed behind them. Thanks, really, and sorry. Khan kneeled and apologized. Victoria, surprised, tried to lift him up, but Khan shook his head and stayed down. If it wasn't for you, we'd. What about Doyle? Huh, Doyle just woke up. He can recognize us. Then that's good. Get up. But, or you can stay like that. Victoria, did the Ice King leave? Yin Wu spoke in a taciturn manner and turned to Victoria. Khan, who had been trying to apologize and thank Yin Wu for everything, was left awkwardly on the ground. Victoria was slightly taken aback and replied with a smile when she realized what Yin Wu was trying to do. Yeah, he left first. He said he doesn't have anything left to do here. He said to tell you to take care of your body when you woke up. Yin Wu nodded. It was understandable since he forced the Ice King to come along. However, he was still grateful that the Ice King had done his best until the end. He almost wanted to invite him into the clan he would soon make. We'll meet again if fate allows. The tower was a vast world, but it was also small. Khan stood up awkwardly when the subject of their conversation didn't return to him. Ahem, his face was red from embarrassment. But Kane. What? I happened to hear about your situation. Quote? I want to help you this time. Is there anything I can do? Khan looked at Yin Wu with a solemn face. Yin Wu looked at Nike, who was atop Khan's shoulders. Nike twitched and turned his head away, whistling awkwardly. Sweat beaded on his feathers. It was obvious where the information was leaked from. Yin Wu nodded at Khan. You don't have to say that. I was planning on making the best of you even if you didn't want to anyway. Quote. Khan had a speechless face. From what he knew, friends usually confirmed their friendship by patting each other's backs, bonding together, and drinking some wine together. But he felt like something was off as he continued to speak with Yin Wu. It occurred to him that Yin Wu might have been doing it on purpose. He was acting like that in case he became embarrassed. I see. Khan approached Yin Wu with a grin. Quote. Stay away from me. Don't be shy. That's not it. The Great Hoarder has his moments, too. Keck, that's not it. You can tell this hung of yours. Your face is red right now, huh? Take that mask off. Go away. Yi and Wu stepped back as Khan approached him with a mischievous smile. The room became noisy as Khan began to chase after Yi and Wu. Victoria shook her head as she looked on. Men. Boys would be boys. A faint smile spread across her face. It was the peaceful scene she wanted to see. The tussle between Yi and Wu and Khan ended with Yi and Wu's victory. Quote. Son of AB***. You actually used your fists. Khan muttered as he rubbed his black eye with an egg. He tried to block it, but he didn't have the ability to avoid the fist of someone who had reached the high ranker level. Yi and Wu fixed his crooked mask. This mask was his trademark. Khan wondered how Yi and Wu's face would look inside of the mask. Was the reason why Yi and Wu wore a mask because he had a facial deformation, like he said, or was there something else behind it? It might have been related to him finding his little brother. Actually, while Yi and Wu was being treated for his fever, Khan was the one who stopped Anastasia and Victoria from taking his mask off. It was because he believed there was a reason why Yi and Wu didn't take his mask off. Yi and Wu heard what happened from Nike and felt grateful. Although he seemed careless on the outside, Khan was a thoughtful guy. He was a good person to keep close. But the inferiority complex he had towards Fant and Adora concerns me a bit. I wonder if it's disappeared with time. Khan and Doyle had been most wary of Fant and Adora in the tutorial. Yi and Wu became curious about what would happen if they were all gathered in one place. Khan's stronger now, too. The 72 Bian that Khan used were too advanced for even Yi and Wu to follow. After he swallowed the Monkey King's shedding, his understanding of the shedding deepened, but it was specialized for battle. There were various types of Bian, so the path he took was different from Khan's. Khan, what? Khan replied in an irked voice. He was still rubbing his eye. You heard about where I'm going, right? Yeah. I don't know when I'll return after I go. It's dangerous too. It's a battle where you have to fight with divine beings. It's different from the tower. Khan realized that Yi and Wu was speaking in a serious tone and put down the egg, narrowing his eyes. What are you trying to say? How are you going to nurse Doyle? Don't you have to be here to block the Bian of the Devil Army? Even though Doyle had regained consciousness, he had been weakened from demonic energy from being the head bishop's vessel for a long time. Khan's Bian were needed to keep it at bay. Oh, Victoria said she would help with. Just then, the door burst open. Yi and Wu turned his gaze to the door and widened his eyes. Doyle was standing there. He looked a bit tired, but he had clear eyes. Please allow me to participate, Hung. You woke up. Yes, all thanks to you. Thank you so much. Tell that to Khan. Hung just did something that was expected. Shouldn't he be scolded instead for being a nuisance to the people around him? Doyle was the same as ever, just like Khan. Yi and Wu laughed. Anyways, like I said. No, please take me to Tartarus. Hey, where are you trying to go with that body of yours? Khan shot up to persuade Doyle, but... Spark. He backed up without being able to get too far. Black demonic energy rose like sparks around Doyle. Not only that, but Doyle opened his right palm. The sparking demonic energy fanned around it and was sucked in, taking a small form. It was a dexterous show of demonic energy. Khan looked at Doyle with surprised eyes. Yi and Wu realized what happened when he saw the form with his draconic eyes and clicked his tongue. Remains of the head bishop. Yes, that's right. There was demonic energy left throughout Doyle's body. The demonic energy that stacked up while the head bishop was in his body remained even after he left. And I have quite a bit of the head bishop's knowledge. To be exact, it was probably the vestige of the head bishop. It seemed that his thinking and knowledge were left in pieces. It was an irony of fate, but to Doyle, it could be a way to turn misfortune into a stroke of luck. The head bishop's mind would help him grow in the future. Moreover, he had the pure demonic energy the head bishop had stacked up. He had enough strength. Actually, this was all possible because of Lady Persephone. Persephone. It was a completely unexpected response. Doyle nodded. She tied me to the living world and kept me from being swept away into the beyond. She said that I'd wake up soon, so I should relax. He had been wondering how Doyle was able to live for so long and avoid the head bishop's senses. It was possible if he had Persephone's help. It should have been difficult for a god to interfere directly like that since you're not an apostle. It's actually been some time since I became Lady Persephone's apostle. Khan and Victoria's eyes widened. It was something Yi and Wu hadn't expected either. Didn't Persephone already have an apostle? Body of green yin. I don't know too well about that either. Just that he became a heroic spirit according to Lady Persephone. Thoughts spun in Yi and Wu's head. Persephone had gotten rid of the apostle she had and appointed Doyle into the position. Considering how hard the task was, it was a sign that she would actively be involved in their business. Was that an indication of how quickly she wanted to reunite with her husband and end the rebellion in Tartarus? If not, Wu remembered the bitter smile that Hades had when he delivered Persephone's letter to him. The first emotion he showed from the cold and exhausted face. Wu shook his head. He couldn't make rash judgments. What went on with the gods would only be a nuisance to him. Things were too complicated, so was I played by the gods and demons. He closed his eyes. From Athena to Persephone, all the gods and demons had known how this would end. Athena looked at him sadly during the entire incident, and Persephone had stepped up herself to take Doyle as her apostle. It would have been dangerous if the head bishop's ceremony was successful, but her gamble had paid off. An apostle who used the power of the heavenly demon. It was an accomplishment that no god had been capable of. Wu felt like he was a piece on a chessboard that the gods and demons were playing on. He had felt this before, but the lower world was only like a stage for the heavenly world to play with. Athena shakes her head saying that's not the case. Persephone is silent, and Lady Persephone told me to deliver a message to you. What? As soon as possible, is what she said. She wanted him to hurry. If you give me a few days, I'll recover. And organize my thoughts. More than anything, the power of Lady Persephone will be a great help in Tartarus. Won't I be a help to you with this much? Wu couldn't help but nod. Like that, the party for a new journey was created. Kiak, you, let me out, let me out. Huck huck huck, I'm hungry, hungry, hungry. Just hearing the screams from the 10,000 weaponry storage room was enough to make one shiver. As you can see, this all happened because of my horrible disciple. After the adamantine nova disappeared, she used different barriers and spells so the weapons and artifacts couldn't run wild. Still, there were limits to what she could do. With the core gone, the pressure on them would lessen. Moreover, Anastasia had been busy with Victoria and hadn't been able to focus on the storage room. Victoria glanced away, too ashamed to say anything. Khan and Doyle knew they were the cause of the problem and looked at the storage room with serious faces. Khan could use Bian, and Doyle could use demonic energy. Being sensitive like most rankers were, they knew how bad the problem inside the storage room was. Something big was being created inside. The evil intent from the weapons and artifacts leaked out and combined with each other, awakening their identities. If this went on, a resilient monster would be created. Of course, if Anastasia stepped up herself, she'd be able to rip it apart easily. No matter how big of a monster appeared, as long as it wasn't a superior monster, it wouldn't be able to defeat her. But Victoria knew that it took a toll on Anastasia for her to manifest as her actual body. It was why her teacher had been separated from the world for 1,000 years. Returning to heaven, that was what always tied Anastasia up. And you'll take care of this. How? Anastasia squinted at Wu as if telling him to stop spouting nonsense. He was looking at the storage room with an indifferent gaze. Wu just asked her a question while maintaining his calm appearance. I can take care of it. Please just answer this question. If I solve this, will you give me the adamantine nova? I'll pay you in full for it. This morning, Wu had asked all kinds of questions after going to see Anastasia. About what she was going to do with the adamantine nova when it didn't have anything to keep tied up. It was an idea that Victoria had spoken about the entire night. After learning that Khan and Doyle were joining Wu's party, she said she wanted to join as well. When she heard they needed to create an adamantine nova before they headed into Tartarus, she said that it was worth a try to make a deal with Anastasia to get rid of a problem she had. Thankfully, Victoria was right. Anastasia accepted the deal, though 90% of her reason was so she could laugh at them. All right, try if you can. If you do, there's no reason to keep it. No, since you're taking care of a problem for me, I'll call you Oriboni as the reward. How does that sound? Under the mask, Wu's two eyes curved. You can't forget what you said. HMPH. Wu stepped into the storage room. Wag. An enormous amount of monstrous energy pressed down his shoulders. It was a power that anyone would end up bending to, but the authority, combat instinct, has been activated. The authority activated and scattered the monstrous energy that had been trying to surround Wu at once. Combat instinct, rank, authority, proficiency, 2.5%. Summary, an authority that a god of Olympus, Ares, gifted you. Ares has kept an eye on you, who was never discouraged in a battlefield with numerous enemies. However, because of his sister, Athena, he just watched you, but this time, he was impressed by you when you massacred all your enemies alone. He regrets that he wasn't able to find you before his sister. He gave you a powerful authority, desperately hoping that you'll become his apostle. Indomitable spirit, the stronger the pressure received from your enemy, the more you'll feel at ease and the tougher your will to win will become. The consumption of your health speeds up, but your offensive power is amplified. The effect is stronger the longer the authority is activated. Soul extortion, your undefeatable spirit will discourage your enemies. With this, you will be able to take some health from them. The channeling with Aries is weak, so many of the authority's effects are being cancelled. The effect of the monstrous energy is being offset. A part of the monstrous energy is absorbed to increase your attack power. He hadn't been able to bring up the entirety of the authority. If he did, all 900 of the other authorities would activate at the same time. But because they were already registered in his skill window, he could use some of them. Aries shouts at you, asking what you're doing. He demands you to open the channeling again right this instant. Athena, who has been watching quietly, reprimands him. Aries flinches and steps back. He explains that that wasn't what he meant. Aries licks his lips and expresses regret. Apollo, who was watching the two, bursts into laughter. He shows interest in you. Artemis looks at you strangely. Yin Wu cut his left wrist with his magic bayonet and sprayed the blood in the air. The blood of residual poison blood was a black color, having been combined with another type of blood. The authority, Hogubyolsung, has been activated. Hogubyolsung, rank, authority, proficiency, 5.2%. Summary, an authority that a god of, Dilmun, Nergal, gifted you. Nergal liked your fighting technique of using monster portents with poison to kill enemies painfully. However, he felt that you were still lacking in the way you used poison, so he gave you this authority hoping you would fix it. Epidemic God. The power of being able to create different epidemics is given to you. According to the proficiency of the skill, the territory and effects of the epidemic expand, and the more enemies you infect, the stronger the epidemic becomes. 1,000 killings. True death doesn't discriminate between the living and the dead. The same effects will show up on those without physical bodies. The channeling with Nergal is weak, so many of the authority's effects are being cancelled. The effects of the authority are being added to your monster portents. Kikiikiak, his shadow split into hundreds and stood high above the ground. There were more monster portents than before. Receiving the effect of Hogubyolsung, they quickly cleared through the 10,000 weaponry storage room. The poison wasn't as strong as it could have been, but the option that the same effects could be seen on spiritual bodies too was a big help. What are these? Go away, ack. The storage room full of evil intent quickly filled with screams. The monster portent, Hun, has gotten rid of the artifact, Tatish's sword. It absorbs its power. The monster portent, So, has crushed the helm of a forgotten warrior. It absorbs its power. The monster portent, Kong, has swallowed the artifact, Akam's book. It absorbs its power. What is? Anastasia's eyes widened at the unbelievable situation. The weapons and artifacts she had created over the centuries were breaking apart too easily. By mere shadow monsters, the weapons and artifacts were breaking so quickly. The monsters and creatures inside of them were either as strong as the monster portents or even stronger. But they were being defeated one-sidedly. It wasn't because they had been sealed for long. They looked as if they were scared by something. Anastasia realized what was making them so. Boo! Witch Doctor's soul looks down at the monsters and creatures. The monsters freeze. The creatures squirm to escape the horror. What is that? Deep inside, Inferno Sight was activated. Upon confirming what it was, Anastasia frowned. It was something that didn't sit well with her either. It was obvious how normal monsters and creatures would feel. Just what is his identity? Anastasia turned her head back to Yin Wu. She had no clue what kind of being Yin Wu was. Stop acting out. You're only a pet of Rhea. That's enough of your cute tricks. From the strange being that lived in the abyss of deep within Yin Wu's eyes, the lich that scared monsters and creatures, and the monster portents, she didn't have any remote idea how they worked. Yin Wu, who ruled over all of them, was the strangest being she had seen in 1,000 years. Meanwhile, when the weapons and artifacts were being crushed, predated by the monster portents, they reached deep into the center where the large monster with self-awareness was. Yin Wu released Shannon and Hanryong as well. Their power was increased, influenced by the many authorities of the gods of war, so they were able to take down the large monster quickly. Hua! The large monster screamed and ended up as a tasty treat for the monster portents. Shannon and Hanryong were able to enjoy a feast for the first time in a while. The dark storage room turned quiet. Khan, Doyle, and Victoria all clicked their tongues. Yi and Wu was much stronger since fighting the head bishop, and they couldn't believe the rate at which he was growing. Yi and Wu recalled his subordinates back into his shadow and looked back at Anastasia. She sighed. It was nice that the countless weapons and artifacts were taken care of, but she felt like everything she had done so far was in vain. It was annoying anyway, just take it. But Yi and Wu shook his head even after receiving the adamantine nova, like that wasn't what he was waiting for. Anastasia narrowed her eyes in confusion. You forgot the last part. Yi and Wu spoke in an apathetic voice. What? You'll call me Oriboni, quote. Her face stiffened. She remembered what she agreed to do. That was just a joke. I guess you're a person who breaks promises easily. Quote. Anastasia, the hand holding her pipe trembled, face red with humiliation. She could refuse, but the problem was that she was a great monster about to exuviate. Lying could have detrimental impacts on the growth of her level. Also, personality-wise, she couldn't break a promise that she said in front of so many people easily. Quote. Ora, Boni, she ended up calling Yi and Wu Oriboni. I couldn't hear you well. Well, let's stop here. Crack, the pipe in Anastasia's hand split into two. The monster portent, Beck, has reached its limits. It is transforming into a new being. The monster portent, Young, has reached its limits. It prepares to transform for exuviation. All monster portents begin to transform. You cannot command them to do anything while the transformation is in progress. Please be careful of any external shock. If the transformation fails, the monster portents may disappear for good. The monster portents began to prepare to become superior beings after swallowing all the weapons and artifacts. Yi and Wu was proud to see about 100 monster portents grow at once. While Bu protected his shadow, he constantly supplied nutrients so the transformation would go smoothly. You have gained the last ingredient, adamantine nova. You have successfully cleared the first condition of the subquest Helm of Darkness. Please begin with the second condition, the creation of Kaini. When ownership of the adamantine nova was transferred, a message saying to start the manufacturing process came up. I don't like you. Anastasia spoke suddenly. Yi and Wu just stared at her. Upon realizing why Yi and Wu was looking at her like that, she frowned. The promise she made still held up. She could see Khan, Doyle, and Victoria giggling far away. She felt like her insides were boiling. What she didn't like the most was the steady eyes behind the mask. She wanted to manifest into her real body and rip his shameless face to shreds. I don't like Oriboni. F***. How long do I have to do this? Sheesh, I don't like it, I hate it. There was humiliation in her eyes when she glared at him, but her eyes were mostly filled with murderous intent. At first, you were the cause of my lacking disciple's pain, and then, you argued for the adamantine nova. You continued to bother my disciple. And now, you're trying to take her again when I thought she had finally come back home. Yi and Wu could understand how Anastasia felt. However, he didn't try to appease her. Resentment didn't disappear that easily. I'll be watching you. Anastasia walked away. The young children who were waiting for her quickly followed. Stopping in front of Victoria, she hit her with the broken pipe. A scream rang out. Somewhat satisfied, Anastasia left with a HMPH and returned to her home. Victoria rubbed the fist-sized bump that was coming up on her head. Khan smiled bitterly and treated her with Bian. Doyle shook his head and quietly stood by Yi and Wu's side. Hung, what are you going to do now? Head over to Tartarus right away. No, I'm going to gather some members first. Members. Since we have to make Kaini, I should gather skilled artisans first. The three Cyclops brothers would be there, but it would be difficult for Yi and Wu to create the Kaini, a great artifact, by himself. And right now, they were rushed for time. He needed help. The people from when we researched the Philosopher's Stone should be enough. Thankfully, one of the top 5 artisans, Victoria, had joined them, and Brahm said that he would gladly help Yi and Wu after hearing the news. Ananta's condition had improved, and he had time to leave for a bit. The members right now were enough, but he wanted to add one more person. Heneva. No player could match his skill in metallurgy. However, one thing that worried him was I haven't gone to see him for a while. He was concerned that a hammer would come flying at him as soon as he went to visit. How should I tease him this time? Of course, what Yin Wu was most worried about was different from most people. And, Yin Wu's hand was slightly shaking with nervousness as he adjusted his mask. Chapter 345 Creation of Kaini 5. With this, the 5 magic towers and 125 different fields of study agree to announce Cain as a common enemy, and we will be creating a team to eliminate him. Pound, pound, pound. The moment the gavel was rapped, all the magicians in the conference room stood up as one. Nervousness was written on each of their faces. An announcement declaring the Hoarder as their common enemy. It was significant. The magic towers and different fields of studies couldn't work together. It was because the path they walked on was different. However, after Walpurgisnacht, talks of an alliance began to come out, and Necropolis was the result of experimenting with it. And the destruction of Necropolis threatened the magicians again and rushed the creation of an alliance. They were shocked that they were defeated by a newbie player who wasn't even one of the 9 kings. The lofty elder magicians were able to learn their places. However, the process wasn't smooth. It was because of the Hoarder's backing. Maybe if he was excommunicated like the Sword God, it would have been easier. It said the Hoarder and the One-Horned tribe are close. And he gets along well with the next king candidate, the Cheongram siblings. There will be a ruckus. Now that the strongest in the tower after the Summer Queen and Red Dragon were toppled, what would happen if they stepped up? Would the magicians be able to take it? There were many opinions, but the gavel was rapped, and it was decided. They didn't have anywhere to turn to. The 5 leaders of the magic towers stood up and headed for the exit through the stairs. Their faces were stiff thinking of the battle to come. How dare you come here, you bastard! Yin Wu was wrong about having a hammer thrown at him when he entered the smithy. It was an anvil instead of a hammer. He avoided it easily with a slight turn of his head. Isn't that expensive? You'll have to go through extra work to fix it because it's broken. Then it'll just. Shut up. Heneva frowned at Yin Wu's teasing and shouted. Yin Wu laughed, thinking Heneva was the same as ever. What are you laughing about? Heneva frowned even more, not liking Yin Wu's attitude. Anyways, I apologize. How dare you come in? Heneva shouted again, but Yin Wu didn't listen and stepped into the smithy without hesitation. Behind him, Khan, Doyle, and Victoria followed with apologetic faces, wondering if it really was all right to enter like this. Kreutz looked around with strange eyes and entered last. Why, you! Heneva's face was as red as a tomato. His fist that was holding a hammer trembled. It seemed he was about to throw that, too. Please calm yourself first. You're not that young anymore, and you might faint from your blood pressure levels being too high. That would be your fault. What a shame, you bastard. Heneva ground his teeth. He really wanted to smack Yin Wu in the head with a hammer. But then he would just dodge it and tease him again. He really was an infuriating guy. Khan and Doyle looked from Yin Wu to Heneva with shocked faces. What? Cain could make jokes like that? Whoa, no way. The Yin Wu they knew was always cold and aloof. He was like a sword planted in the middle of a battlefield, painted with blood, about to fall any moment. Of course, they knew he was affectionate inside, unlike his cold personality. But looking at this new side of him, they felt the image they had of him fly out of their heads. It was a bit surprising, too. They felt closer to Yin Wu. The same went for Kreutz. After sending the illusion Knightage back, he was glad to see a new, warm side to Yin Wu after having been treated like he didn't exist. Is he like that with the regiment leader? I can't imagine it. Kreutz thought of the regiment leader, who was as indifferent as Yin Wu was, and grinned. What's that tail behind you? What did you bring with you? Heneva looked at them with narrowed eyes. Considering how noisy the Fant siblings were when they came with Yin Wu, the 4 just looked like more nuisances for him. Just then, Victoria stepped forward with a smile. Heneva, long time no see. Who are? Victoria. Yes, sir. Why are you here? As 2 of the top 5 artisans, they met each other from time to time, albeit not often. Ah, I wondered where the rune magic he brought from last time was from. It must have been from you. Heneva clicked his tongue, thinking of the papers that Yin Wu had back when they were making the Philosopher's Stone. Then, he narrowed his eyes. Should I give you some advice? If it's from you, I'll consider it. Avoid that guy, he has all kinds of sly schemes planned. If you can't get out now, you'll be stuck forever. Victoria burst out laughing. I guess you're already in deep. Well, anyways, how's your teacher? Fine, thanks to you. Good. Yi and Wu was slightly surprised when he heard what the two said. You know Anastasia. Heneva tossed the hammer on the floor and looked at Yi and Wu with a taciturn face. He seemed to be wondering whether he should answer Yi and Wu or not. Then, he took his pipe out of his mouth. White smoke filled the air. Didn't she use a pipe like this? She did. I made it. She said she wanted one when she saw me smoking it, so I made her one. Yi and Wu thought of how Anastasia's pipe had split in two. It had happened because he got on her nerves. Thinking that the hammer might come flying at him if he mentioned it, he didn't say anything about it. Victoria glanced at Yi and Wu. I also made a place for her to keep her strange weapons, called the 10,000 weaponry. I used to fix it up if there was any problem with it. The 10,000 weaponry was destroyed by Yi and Wu's hand. So were the weapons inside of it. He didn't say anything about it this time either. I made a villa for her to stay at, too. Yi and Wu thought of how he blew up Anastasia's residence. Open corner bracket. How many artisanal works did you break? It's all money. You said he was like your father, but you blew his works up. That personality. Shannon mocked. Shut up. Yi and Wu shot back at Shannon internally and decided to feign ignorance. It was a relief he was wearing a mask during times like this. Victoria kept on shifting her feet, not knowing what to say. You can think of her as an old customer. Kelkle. Anyways. So, what did you come to ask me for this time? He asked Yi and Wu with a crinkle of his forehead. White smoke wafted around him. You say that like I only come when I have something to ask of you. I'm hurt. You're acting like you don't. Stop with the nonsense. What is it this time? Yi and Wu smiled sourly. Heneva knew him too well. However, this time, it was important to Heneva as well. His eyes were serious. There's something I want to speak to you about. Heneva, having realized the graveness, put his pipe out by tapping it on the ground. Heneva still had a morose face as they moved to a room inside the smithy. He felt annoyed because the guy who hadn't visited him once had come to ask him for something again. It was noisy outside. Whoa, what's this? It looks like I'll cut my hand just by touching it. How did he make this? He's definitely the artisan of Ironblood, like I heard in the rumors. Do you think I can ask him for one? Don't you think you'll get in trouble? Or maybe I can just swipe one. I beg of you, please grow up. Khan and Doyle were busy looking around at the weapons and armor on display in the smithy. Amazing, he's gotten even better. What did he implement here? Victoria exclaimed as she looked around. Her eyes were shining for the first time in a while. The new technology Heneva had implemented caught her eye. And Kreutz was, he stood blankly in front of an alcohol cabinet that he found in the corner. He enjoyed drinking with his subordinates on a normal basis, and he could feel himself gulp just by looking at the oak barrel. The beer made by a dwarf was priceless. Heneva couldn't hold it in anymore and stuck his head out the door to shout. Shut up. Go talk outside. Kwong. He shut the door and came back with a furious face. Why are the kids you go around with all the same? It just happened that way. If the Cheongram kids are added on top of them. Arg. He rubbed his temples like he was getting a headache already. He didn't understand why his smithy was becoming the base for Yi and Wu and the others. It quickly became noisy again outside. Heneva didn't expect them to listen to him, so he just put his pipe back in his mouth with a dissatisfied expression. So, what do you have to talk about? Do I have to make something strange like the Philosopher's Stone again? It's similar. You brought something annoying again. This time, I have to make Kaini. Kaini. Heneva tilted his head with a grimace. It was a familiar name, but he didn't remember what it was. Then, he recalled something from deep in his memory. Are you talking about Hades's great artifact? The helm that Olympus's king of the underworld used? Yes, sir. Ha, you've hit a new high this time. Why do you have to make that? Heneva had a disbelieving face. There was never a quiet moment when Yi and Wu brought something to do. Yi and Wu didn't say anything for a while. Countless thoughts were going through his head. Actually, on the way here, he had contemplated it several times. Heneva always helped whenever he needed it, and he never asked for details when doing it. Although he was probably curious about many things, Heneva always trusted him. The same went for now. Even though he was asking for a reason, if Yi and Wu said it was necessary, Heneva would help him willingly. But, can I really do that? Hadn't he been too reliant on Heneva's generosity and trust? Moreover, what he was doing this time couldn't be spoken about easily. He would have to pull Heneva into what he was doing and could potentially expose him to danger. Also, it was related to the whereabouts of his little brother, who Heneva longed for. Asking for help without explaining anything was deceiving Heneva, even though he might be alright with it. Yi and Wu came to a decision after much thought. To trust Heneva. It's fine. The hardest tool to make in the world is probably the one that will pry your mouth open. So, what do you want me to do now? You're not gonna tell me to go to Tartarus with you. Heneva trailed off as he spoke. It was because Yi and Wu suddenly reached for his mask. And, clack, Yi and Wu took off his mask. It felt strange because he hadn't taken it off in a while. Still, he felt dizzy from nervousness. He didn't have any idea what Heneva would say when he saw his bare face. Whether he would resent him or become depressed. He felt a bit worried. Heneva had a surprised face, not expecting Yi and Wu to take his mask off so suddenly. And when his face was revealed, his widened eyes slightly narrowed, and he scoffed like he was flabbergasted. Still, there was a smile on his face. How quick of you to tell me now. You bastard. Chapter 346 Creation of Kainite 6. Team. HH, Yahiko, Thursdays 4/10. Yi and Wu looked shocked. All kinds of questions floated around in his head. He asked in a slightly trembling voice. Did you? No. Heneva put his pipe back in his mouth with a serene face, as if trying to tease Yi and Wu. I made you your armor and mask. If I still didn't know after that, I'd be a fool. Quote exclamation mark quote. Yi and Wu's eyes widened. Heneva had indeed made him the two items. Like what Heneva said, the fact that Heneva had made his armor and mask meant that he knew how Yi and Wu's body was built. Yi and Wu had shared his information window with him, but it was impossible for Heneva to make something for him without knowing the smallest details. No, even with that aside, looking back at it now, Heneva had known him well. There was always warmth in his gaze and actions towards Yi and Wu. At first, I thought a dead child had returned. How happy I was. I just thought that you were hiding your identity because nothing good would come from others knowing. White smoke steadily filled the room. But after talking more with you, I realized. You weren't that child. You had his face, body, eyes, and voice. But you were someone completely different. Your tone and personality. Heneva's gaze was fixed on the furnace with only a spark left. Sounds of the fuel burning popped in the room. So I thought someone was trying to trick me. But that wasn't it either. Then I understood. Hee. There was something he said a long time ago in passing. Old man, it was like the voice of the dead was ringing his Heneva's voice. He remembered how the guy had entered his smithy without any permission and talked up a storm while he was working on a piece of iron. What now? If you're just gonna babble, go get a hammer and help. Do you have a family? What in the world are you going on about? Just answer my question. HMPH. I'm a black dwarf who strayed from his path as a blacksmith. Of course I wouldn't have something so troublesome. This anvil is my son and this hammer is my wife. What? You're no fun. What? Then what about you? Mine's better off than your boring life. He pictured the child's smile. I have a rude brother. Heneva's gaze was fixed on Yi and Wu's waist. He could see the magic bayonet exuding a cold aura. The iron he had been working on at the time was now in his brother's possession. Actually, I was waiting for you to bring it up sometime since nothing good would come from me asking about it. I thought you were just trying to collect your thoughts. Quote. So you wanted to tell me now? No, you want me to do something, but your conscience won't let you ask me without telling me. Is that it? Heneva glared at Yi and Wu with narrowed eyes. Yi and Wu shook his head firmly. That's not it. No, you're in the palm of my hand. I can tell from your usual actions. Open corner bracket seems like the old man knows your personality well. Guess it's because he's experienced too much. Shannon's laughing voice rang in his head. Shannon. Open corner bracket please shut up. Heneva took in another deep breath from his pipe. There was a brief period of silence between them. Yi and Wu wondered what he should say. Did he need to apologize? Or, what did he say about me? Yi and Wu asked with the same face as Cha Jung-woo. He said you were rude. That bastard. Calcalcal. Looking back at it now, he was right. Heneva chuckled. All his annoyance seemed to be gone. Yi and Wu laughed with him and slowly opened his mouth. You asked why I needed to make Kaini earlier. I did. It's to find Jung-woo. Heneva's smiling mouth hardened. What are you? He widened his eyes at the unexpected statement. Yi and Wu began to explain the situation he was in. The cast of the Black King that he could only complete after creating Kaini. The promise with the 3 Cyclops brothers. And the pocket watch that contained a secret. Can you show me? He held out the pocket watch to Heneva. Heneva examined the pocket watch for a while. Then, he frowned. The seal is too strong. Metallurgy isn't enough to repair it. And, you said something about the soulstone earlier, right? Yes, sir. If that's in here, I'm even more sure. It's too hard for me to do something with it. They might also find it too difficult. Heneva didn't clarify who they were, but Yi and Wu knew who he was referring to. He was saying it could be hard for the three Cyclops brothers as well. He avoided explicitly mentioning their names out of respect for the three Cyclops brothers, who were considered blacksmith gods. That was how hard it was to deal with soulstones. Yes, I thought it might be hard too. Then why? Still, if three gods work on it along with Victoria and Brahm, wouldn't there be some kind of result? And we have you, so why would I be concerned? HMPH, did you think flattering me would get you anywhere? Heneva scoffed, but there was a smile on his face. And even if we fail, Hades agreed to give me Kaini after we help him. Ah, so you're saying you can awaken the power of the Black King to find another solution? Yes, sir. Yi and Wu nodded. The power of death. If he had the authority that gods and demons respected and Poseidon was wary of. He thought a path would open. Heneva crossed his arms and nodded. So whatever ends up happening, you're saying that making Kaini is at the top of the list. Yes, sir, and going to Tartarus is necessary. Yi and Wu smiled bitterly. Heneva grimaced and took the pipe back in his mouth. I'm going through all kinds of things after meeting you brothers at the end of my life. I don't know what kind of sin I committed in my previous life to deserve this. Even while grumbling, Heneva's eyes were blazing like the fire in the furnace from the hope of being able to meet the person he once considered his son. The head bishop slowly woke up, opening his eyes. He saw a familiar sight in front of him. A room with a solemn atmosphere. He knew at once that everything had gone wrong. Still, he looked down at his hand with hope that it wasn't true. It was a wrinkled, dry hand with bones and veins popping out. There were many age spots all over it, and it looked powerless. In fact, he had no strength. His magic power organ was dried up, and his muscles couldn't recover anymore. The only reason he had been able to last this long was because of his outstanding soul power. But even that would be useless if his body was destroyed. No, before that, if the curse took over his soul, it was the end. This was why he desired a new body. He was planning on awakening as a new being to overcome all his troubles, but... Did I fail again? Things didn't go his way. I thought I was closer to success this time. The damned curse. The damned heavenly demon. The head bishop muttered words that were unimaginable for a head bishop to say. But the skies were silent, like they didn't care. He would have preferred for the skies to punish him instead, but nothing followed. Were they saying he didn't even deserve to be punished? Or could they just not be bothered to do so? Whatever it was, the head bishop was frustrated. If he knew it was going to end up like this. Should I not have stood up back then? The previous head bishop, Black Dawn, once ruled at the top of the tower with his abilities, as powerful as the bloodlight philosopher from the One-Horned tribe. The bishops who followed him were called the strongest in history. But the problem was that they were as tyrannical as they were strong. The devil army under Black Dawn's rule was hell. Demon. With the proclamation that this was the true identity of the clan, followers of the heavenly demon died every day. There were all kinds of reasons for it. Because the god wasn't satisfied, because the god wanted it, because the god was hungry. The god. Every act of tyranny was excused by the words, the heavenly demon wanted it, and followers died happily, thinking it really was what their god wanted. From what he saw, they were all crazy. The devil army might have been called a lunatic cult by outsiders, but its members were bound together by warmth and affection. The teaching of the heavenly demon was the brightness of love and peace. Because he didn't want to see the clan become stained with darkness, he had flipped everything over. During the ceremony for the heavenly demon that happened every 10 years, while everyone was on their knees, he alone stood up and killed Black Dawn and the other bishops, who were saying he was disrespectful. Wearing the bloodied crown, he announced that he was the new bishop. Everyone was shocked, but they couldn't reject him as he had killed Black Dawn. The ceremony ended like that, and a curse was engraved on his soul. It was back then when the authority of the heavenly demon was closed off from them. Many bishops and diocesans were killed off easily because of this. Because they weren't allowed the authority of the heavenly demon, there were limits to what power they could have. Compared to those who came before them, their power was near nothing. The reason none of this was known to the public was that the strength of the head bishop was outstanding, and Kindred, the second bishop, had accomplished a lot. But even this was in danger. The curse had violently spasmed and was eating at his body. From then, he had no choice but to become evil. Even with the curse, he had never resented the heavenly demon. Rather, he spent every day and night correcting Black Dawn's teachings. Although their power was less than before, the lives of the followers had improved. Also, he prayed every day to the heavenly demon to change his mind. But back then, and even now, there was no reply. I'm not scared of dying. I've already lived a long life. But what will happen to the clan after I disappear? What would happen if the Devil Army's situation was revealed to the rest of the tower after its head bishop disappeared? The peace they barely managed to create would crumble. After all, peace was only a house constructed with the building blocks of power. The head bishop decided that he needed to force the heavenly demon to answer. If he became another face of the heavenly demon, wouldn't the Devil Army be able to run strong again? So he progressed with his plans, but everything had gone wrong. Of course, there could be other faces other than the Monkey King's shedding, such as the Rui Bang pieces that were scattered throughout the tower. But even then, there wasn't much time left for the head bishop. With all the bishops and diocesans gone, there was nothing he could do. I guess there's only one thing left to do. He judged it was time to pull out the last card that he didn't want to use. We'll abandon our God. If their God rejected them, they had no other option but to find another. Or swallow him. The head bishop's eyes flashed. Creak. The door opened, and Kindred entered. He bowed with shame. Kindred, get ready to leave immediately. But he widened his eyes, looking at the head bishop in bad health, but he nodded his head. Where should I escort you? The Temple of the Seven Demon Kings. Chapter 347 Creation of Kainite 7. Team. Yahiko, Thursdays 5/10. Ego. You don't have to go this far to help me. It's nothing. I'm doing it because I want to. The old man smiled warmly and looked at the young boy who carried his load for him. I don't know whose son you are, but your parents must be very proud of you. Thank you. The young boy scratched the back of his head and began to climb the incline with the old man. A sad expression flashed across his face, but he quickly smiled again. The shadow watching from far away became emotional. After becoming Yi Wu's subordinate, he had been busy trying to regain his strength and helping Yi Wu that he didn't have the time to worry about his son. It was partly because it seemed like Yi Wu was taking care of his son like he had promised. But seeing it with his own eyes made him feel relieved. He heard that he had quit drugs and was working at a general store to earn a small living. After following him around all day, it looked like he really was living a diligent lifestyle. The way he treated customers nicely when selling items and helped people on the road from time to time was different from the son he knew. For a moment, Hanryong wondered if he had found the right person. He also thought that his son might have been acting like that only in the day and doing something else at night, but that didn't seem to be the case either. He really had turned over into a new leaf. He didn't have the competence as a player, but he was still acting like a human. What had Yi Wu done to his son? The thought suddenly occurred to him, but he shook his head. It could have been that I raised him improperly. Hanryong did everything he could for Hanbin, but he wasn't there when Hanbin needed him the most. These things could have been what made Hanbin like that in the past. Of course, that didn't excuse what Hanbin did. Many people were hurt by him, and the 16th floor was nearly destroyed. But after seeing how his son had changed, he felt his head become clearer. Faceless. Hanryong thought of when he met Faceless at the Monkey King's palace. Hoo-hoo, I didn't think I'd meet you here. My dear friend. That wasn't Faceless. Faceless had many faces, but the one who appeared was someone whom he thought was dead or near dead. Sword God. Hanryong clenched his fists. I wondered where you were hiding all this time. Faceless was included as a part of the 6 new stars, but he was a player who had been in the tower for quite a bit. He was pretty famous for his acts, but he wasn't very popular because he wasn't that skilled. After Red Dragon suddenly toppled, he had been on the rise with all the changes in the tower. The Sword God was Faceless. No, to be exact, he was disguised as Faceless. He probably swallowed him. The real Faceless. The Sword God was crazy about martial arts, but he hadn't completely ignored other skills. It made sense if he used other methods and arts to avoid the eyes of those who were looking for him. However, if there was a problem, it was that he wasn't just one person. As a death noble, he knew There were many souls other than the sword god and Faceless. It was problematic that he knew most of them. Mubial, Katak, Hebaxel, C, Tyler. And even Flang. They were all subordinates who had been ready to give their lives for the sword god at any moment. They were the sword that allowed Cheonwado to be in the 8 large clans. All of them were with the sword god. And one of them was someone he never would have imagined. Flang, the martial king's younger brother and one of the founders of Cheonwado. There were other souls as well, but most of them were from Cheonwado. Faceless was a walking Cheonwado. However, because there were too many souls in one body, the body wasn't able to do its unique function. It creaked with just a little movement, and the dominant personality changed frequently. But Hanryong thought that Faceless would be able to overcome those constraints and become full again. No, he might even reach a higher peak than the sword god had. He would be able to process the thoughts of many people at once. Most of all, the sword god Hanryong knew never crumbled in front of an obstacle and forced himself forward. That was how he was able to go from being unable to speak to one of the 9 kings. I'll see you next time if fate allows us. Faceless aided Hanryong before the cave collapsed. And until now, Hanryong felt frustrated and uncomfortable. Even if he went back, he would do the same thing. But even so, everything was because of him. He had already told Yi and Wu everything he knew about Faceless. Yi and Wu firmly said Hanryong didn't need to worry about anything, but he still felt uncomfortable. Since Faceless saw that he was with Yi and Wu now, unless Faceless was a fool, he'd know who had destroyed Cheonwado. Open hollow corner bracket Hanryong, where are you? Just then, he heard Yi and Wu's voice through their connection. It seemed it was time to go back. After replying that he'd return, he looked at his son for a while and disappeared into the shadows. Hanbin paused and looked around. He had definitely felt something familiar. What's wrong? Nothing. Let's continue. Hanbin shook his head and began to walk with the old man again. Uncle, are you going to work again? No fair. Yi and Wu held the whining Sesha high up into the air. I'll be back soon. HMPH. That's what you said last time. And Brahm's going with you this time, too. Yi and Wu knew that she was slightly upset, so he smiled. It was probably because Brahm, who took care of her often, was going as well. Then bring a Malona when you come back. TN. Malona is a type of Korean ice cream. What you made last time was really good. Make it for me again. Yi and Wu burst out laughing. He patted her back, saying he would. Also, he desperately hoped he would have good news for Sesha when he returned. Don't worry, I'll take care of Sesha. No, even without me, there's no one in this village who wouldn't take care of her. The head elder adjusted his glasses as he took Sesha from Yi and Wu. The fights between the village boys became worse every day because of her. Yi and Wu waved his hand and returned to his companions. Heneva was looking at Sesha stiffly. That child is. Yes, Jung Wu's daughter. I see, he nodded. He had seen her from time to time when he was making the Philosopher's Stone, but he hadn't realized. Even though she called Yi and Wu uncle, he thought it was just a sign of affection. Would you like to hold her? Heneva hesitated for a bit and carefully accepted Sesha, like she would break if he wasn't careful. Sesha's eyes widened. Uncle, this kid grandfather is weird. Kid grandfather. Yi and Wu held in laughter that was about to escape his lips. Others looked away with red faces as well. Heneva pat Sesha with his short arms and returned her with a sigh. Then, he glared at Yi and Wu with narrow eyes. It seems the way you brothers speak is a family trait. It seems so. Yi and Wu looked back at his companions. Khan, Doyle, Victoria, Kreutz. On top of that, Brahm, Galliard, and Heneva. A total of 8 people. The number of members in his party had grown quite a bit. Considering how he only wanted to solo play when he first entered the tower, a lot had changed. Then I'll open the path. Brahm ripped the scroll in his hand. A red portal appeared under their feet. It was a portal scroll that used Yi and Wu's coordinates since he had already been to Tartarus. They could see the black sky of Tartarus beyond the portal. As they were about to enter. Sir Disciple, would you please come here for a second? The martial king waved at Yi and Wu from the roof of Brahm's cottage. Yi and Wu widened his eyes at his teacher's sudden appearance and asked for his companions to wait, leaving to speak with the martial king. Yes, sir. You should clean up after your own s*****. Quote. Yi and Wu looked at him with questioning eyes, and the martial king tossed a piece of paper at him like he couldn't be bothered to reply. Yi and Wu caught the paper with ease and read it. His 2 eyes turned heavy. This is. The devil army has declared war. In the name of the god, we declare a holy war on our enemy, the hoarder, for disturbing the actions of our god. Moreover, punishment will follow the ruffians, heretics, and immoral people who follow the hoarder. As you can see, they're saying they're gonna kill everyone who helps you. There's ting on me too, right? The Martial King continued with an annoyed face. And that gluttony bastard should just quietly eat his crackers in his room, but he's saying he's gonna work with those black salamanders and you to beat up those white lizards. It seemed the black salamanders he was talking about were black dragon and the white lizards were white dragon. Those magic tower jackasses must have been shot in the head because they made an alliance or whatever and they're aiming for you. Yi and Wu thought of how Dr. Doom and Necropolis had been melted down by Boo. Elohim, those sons of B**** are also acting up again. And that Iron Lion clan or whatever is gathering mercenaries too. 4 out of the 8 large clans were moving. The Magic Tower Alliance hadn't been able to show its full power because of internal struggles, but if it was united, it was a force to be reckoned with. If the Iron Lion clan rounded up the world of mercenaries, it would be a mighty force too. It could turn into a great war. But this is all with you at the center. What kind of mess have you been making? The Martial King narrowed his eyes. He was smiling, but the air around him was chill-inducing. Because of our Sir Disciple, our entire village will be involved in something annoying, so what should we do? But, is that it? Yi and Wu was nonchalant. The Martial King wrinkled his forehead. What? It still needs to develop further. That's not what I wanted. You want a great war to happen. If possible. Ha, you crazy dipstick. The Martial King gripped his forehead with an incredulous face. A great war. There were lots of wars during the thousands of years of history in the tower. However, there were only a few on such a large scale that they nearly wiped out half of the population. One of the most well-known wars was the legendary Great Second Dragon Extermination War. The draconic species who wanted to open the path to the 98th floor to regain their supernaturality and Alpharon, who had blocked them on the 77th floor. The result of the war was the extinction of the draconic species, who were said to rule the tower at the time. If the young Summer Queen hadn't survived, the entire draconic species would have died out. There were a few more great wars after that, and each time, there were changes to the hierarchy of the tower. But that was what Yi and Wu was talking about. It was unbelievable from the Martial King's perspective. But Yi and Wu's eyes were more serious than ever. Please just ignore it. War won't happen that easily anyway. The situation will have inflated more than they expected, and they'll be busy being wary of each other. As long as the fire in the furnace isn't lit, there will only be talks of allying and uniting with each other. And you're going to light the furnace? Yi and Wu didn't say anything. The Martial King's eyes settled heavily. He lifted a corner of his mouth. It looked like a mocking smile in one way, a mischievous smile in another. Is this the picture that you wanted to draw? Yes. Our Sir Disciple's drawing skills are lit. Chapter 348 Creation of Kaini 8. Team. Yahiko, Thursdays, 6/10. The Martial King clicked his tongue. You know what my policy is, right? Yes, I am aware. The Martial King always set forth 3 rules for anything involved with the One-Horned tribe. No interference, no involvement, no tolerance. They wouldn't accept any interference. They wouldn't get involved in anything either. But when either of the two occurred, they wouldn't show any tolerance. It was how the One-Horned tribe was able to stand high and mighty above the quarrels of the 8 large clans and continue to grow until now. But as Yi and Wu caused chaos in the tower, the One-Horned tribe could be dragged into it because of him. The Devil Army and Magical Alliance openly mocked the One-Horned tribe and the Martial King. They said they were ready to fight. The Alliance of Bloodland and Black Dragon even expressed their desire to have the Martial King himself step up. No, the fact that they said they would work with Yi and Wu, who wasn't that powerful in the first place, was obviously a measure to involve the Martial King. But the Martial King didn't want to join them at all. The only reason why he appeared in the fight with Red Dragon was because of the no tolerance rule when they were swept up in the battle during their chase for the culprit who hurt one of their members. He just laughed at those who fought over who was the strongest. He wasn't aiming for a mud puddle like that. He had greater ambitions. Alpharon. His only interest was in bringing down the guy who loftily looked down on him from above. The Martial King had come to tell Yi and Wu that. He had already sent 2 disciples out and barely found this one. And he was showing some potential as well. He didn't like how Yi and Wu always caused incidents, but the martial king had done the same when he was younger, so he pretended not to see it. But if Yi and Wu took it too far and splashed mud on him, he couldn't stay still. And because Yi and Wu knew that well, he nodded. Before the martial king was his teacher, he was a king who kicked his own brother away for his tribe. There was no way Yi and Wu couldn't understand his stance. Even with that aside, this is my fight, he had to carry out his revenge with his own 2 hands. I think you said the same thing some time ago. Well, whatever, come back safely, although, it'll be pretty hard. And with that, the martial king disappeared. Yi and Wu bowed, knowing that his teacher was still watching him from somewhere, and he entered the portal. Pat, light filled the world and blinded him. You have entered the hidden stage, Tartarus. The air is too stale. There's also pressure on souls going around. Is it because it's a place where divine beings live? This is Tartarus. The party frowned once they entered Tartarus. A stale air, ominous atmosphere, and a pressure that pushed them down. It was a place where the living weren't welcome, and mortals who didn't know, level, were forbidden. The party members felt like their souls and bodies would be separated if they didn't hold on to their wits tightly. Khan and Doyle quickly activated Bian to escape the pressure while Victoria activated the artifact that Anastasia had given her to create a spherical barrier around them. When Kreutz planted the holy sword Zulfikar into the ground, another barrier was added on top of it. Heneva, whose face was pale upon arriving in Tartarus, could finally catch a breath. Then, he looked around to find Yi and Wu. You said we were going to the temple of the king of the underworld, but where are we? Even from what Yi and Wu could see, their surroundings were completely devastated. Only a few traces left behind showed that there had been a battle here a long time ago. Yi and Wu turned to Brahm, who created the scroll. But Brahm didn't seem to know either. I inserted the coordinates you gave me. Yi and Wu went over his coordinates in case he had accidentally given the wrong ones. They were correct. Vimalasitra smiles with satisfaction at the familiar scene of war. Cernunnos quietly watches you. Persephone silently urges you to quickly find her husband. While Yi and Wu frowned at the messages from his connected gods. Hades said the last of his territory was a temple, correct? Brahm asked after silently watching the sky. Yes, sir. Then it must be his holy territory. If so, there are 2 possibilities. What are they? The first is if Hades was destroyed while you were looking for materials. Persephone displays her anger. Uek. Just then, Doyle suddenly wrapped his hands around his head and fell to his knees. What's wrong? Khan tried to help him up, but Doyle pushed his hand aside and lifted his head. The party took a step away from him at the energy he exuded. The barrier around them shook. Doyle's eyes were shining green. You dare discuss my husband's death? A mere debased being who's fallen from holiness. A sharp voice. A bunch of holy power was being exerted. Persephone herself had manifested into Doyle's body to speak. Persephone. Brahm looked at Doyle, whose hair was standing on end, with narrow eyes. Even though she spoke words that belittled him, his eyes were heavy. Brahma, if you don't watch your words. What, are you going to punish me? How? From that prison of the 98th floor? Brahm scoffed even as Persephone radiated a violent aura. He had shown a generous side of him while taking care of Sesha, but he was actually a cynical being with the nickname, Exile. His dislike of supernaturals tied to the 98th floor was actually worse than before. If you're worried about your husband, you should just shut up and watch. Brahm put his hand on Doyle's head like he didn't want to talk to Persephone anymore. The hair standing straight on Doyle's head settled down, and the green light in his eyes disappeared. Doyle's eyes widened, not knowing what had happened, then he smiled bitterly as he spoke to Brahm. You were too harsh, Brahm. Why, guess she told you off. Doyle couldn't say anything. Although it hadn't been long since he started serving her, he was still Persephone's apostle. But Brahm was also once a divine being. Doyle had heard a bit about Brahm's situation from Yi and Wu, and he couldn't treat Brahm lightly either. Just ignore her. Brahm ended the conversation just like that and clicked his tongue as he turned to Yi and Wu. She's famous for being ladylike, but she goes off whenever her husband becomes involved. Tisk. Yi and Wu saw Brahm in a different light. What's the second possibility? You didn't get to say it. Oh, that. Simple. Hades temporarily changed the coordinates of the holy territory. Yi and Wu's eyes widened. That means that there's probably a fight going on somewhere. Since his holy territory is quite sizable, he probably wasn't able to change the coordinates by much. Yi and Wu quickly summoned Nike and sent him into the sky. Nike flapped his wings. As he drew a circle in the air, he could see darkness waving from far away. Open hollow corner bracket master. There's something there. Yi and Wu quickly tapped into Nike's vision. The sky of Tartarus was always gray and dark, so it was hard to tell the distance. Draconic eyes. But when he observed the flaws, there was something that seemed as if it was completely wavering. A giant god. Beings similar to the titan he first saw when he entered Tartarus were fighting intensely. Darkness split, and lighting shot down. The ground cracked, and a column of fire soared up. What poured down when space was split were monsters too horrendous to be described. It was a battle of high stakes. The problem was that it was hard to tell who was winning. It would be nice if Hades' side was, but Yi and Wu felt anxious. If he was winning, why would he change the coordinates? Open hollow corner bracket, but it's too far. Nike squinted, estimating the distance. He was only able to tell because he was a legendary beast. Normal players wouldn't be able to tell no matter how hard they tried. Wings of Fire, Blink, and Wind Path can decrease the distance somewhat. Yi and Wu spun his magic circuit with all he had. Heaven Wing Mana Control. Magic Circuit, total output. Brahm, take your time coming. Wind Path, Gale, Kwang. Yi and Wu didn't wait for Brahm's reply and quickly stepped on the fastest wind of Wind Path. He could hear Khan and Doyle shouting something from behind, but it was muffled by the explosion. He wasn't too concerned. Brahm would know what was happening through their connection, so he could explain to the party members. All else aside, Khan, Doyle, and Victoria were skilled in Bianan magic. They would follow after him soon. Sweek. Yi and Wu rode the wind path and used Blink consecutively. Boo buffed him from the shadows. How far had he run? Boom. Yi and Wu could see all kinds of monsters pouring out from the sky. 1, 2, 19 at the very least. Seeing a single giant god who was kilometers tall fighting was shocking in itself, but watching a bunch of them move together made him speechless. He wasn't even scared speechless. There was just too great of a difference between them that he didn't even feel scared. And, Krrrng, Hades looked to be in danger as he swung his sword around, speeding through the titans. Darkness splattered like blood when he swung his sword, and limbs that were like mountains fell to the ground. His divinity was stronger than the titans, but to Yi and Wu, Hades looked like a ship stranded in a storm. He could feel Hades' exhaustion from fighting the titans alone without any help for such a long time. Yi and Wu quickly looked around. Under the sky that Hades was fighting, there was a siege happening along large castle walls. Pluto was fighting the lower-level beings that the titans had brought with them. They pushed back the beings who tried to climb over the castle walls. The determination to protect the last of their territory could be seen clearly on their faces. But despite their will, the situation wasn't in their favor. Piles of monsters were stacked up around the castle walls like mountains, but there was no end to it as they kept on pouring down from the sky. They didn't care about their fellow beings on the ground and stepped on their bodies to climb the castle walls. They used the corpses as shields or infused magic power into them to toss them into the holy territory like bombs. On the other hand, Pluto seemed tired from the long battle. A few of them couldn't take it and fell off the castle walls together with the monsters. However, an interesting thing to note was that there were beings without divinity by Pluto's sides. Even at a glance, Yi and Wu could tell they were players like himself. He didn't know how the other players got there, but he put the question behind him and began to rack his brain. Time difference. It's too dangerous. Is there a way to block those monsters, even temporarily? Yi and Wu spread his territory of recognition around. Fortunately, the divine beings weren't interested in a weakling like Yi and Wu. It was a good opportunity for him. Just then, that guy, a being caught the eye of his extrasensory perception. Surrounded by titans, it was too small to be seen, but its level wasn't lacking at all when compared to the titans. It was a woman with long green hair. She was glaring at the barriers around the holy territory with a bored face. Black light was wrapped around the crystal she carried. An energy similar to that of the monsters. The crystal seemed to be a summoning artifact. Will it work? In his slowed time, countless calculations and hypotheses ran through his head. But what came back every time was failure. Unless he was at the Martial King's level, or even the 9 Kings, it was impossible to fight a divine being with the power he had. It was likely he would cause them to become even more furious and worsen things. Maybe it could be possible if he had an authority to kill divine beings, but there was nothing like that out of his 900 authorities. There was no way gods and demons would give him something that would hurt them. He had to think outside of the box. If I aim for just the crystal, chance of success was still only 5%. The difference between him and his opponent was too great. He needed to close the gap. What if I pretend to go crazy and awake all the authorities? It could stimulate his settled fever again, but he didn't have the mind to worry about that right now. The results came back soon. 15%. It's a lot higher, but still. What if I use the method with dragon killers? If he wasn't scared of his body being destroyed and using regeneration. 20%. He had raised the chances by a lot, but it still wasn't enough. Just then, a thought occurred to him. He had a weapon that gods and demons were afraid of. The divine item that binded supernaturals, divine iron. The pieces of the Ruyi Bang. He spread his hand apart. The pieces he gained after defeating the devil army shined and spun around on his palm. A smile spread across his face. 30%. Yi and Wu stopped running. The time around him returned to normal speed. Third step, dragon body awakening. All authorities released. Crunch, crunch. His body couldn't endure the strength that suddenly grew and began to shake. Regeneration activated to hold him still, and he forced the disconnected 900 channelings to Tartarus. He poured all that power into the Ruyi Bang. Waak. Fiery golden eyes. The pieces of the Ruyi Bang cried out as they shined. Yi and Wu's eyes shined in a gold color as well. Fiery golden eyes. The Monkey King's eyes settled on top of his draconic eyes. The pieces danced in the air and began to create something. Clack, clack. A new golden weapon appeared in his hand. It was a spear about 2 meters long. Yi and Wu pulled out Vigrid and fixed it to the end of the spear. Vigrid's handle and the groove of the spear fit together like matching puzzle pieces. Gripping it, he got into a fighting stance. His body was still trembling. The Philosopher's Stone was overheated. Dragon Killer, Holy Fire, Heaven Bracket, Flame Wheel. Fire shot out from the end of Vigrid. The demonic fire that the great sage had used when he burned the heavenly world flared up and combined with the holy fire to create a black-red divine fire. He threw the long spear that was in his hand. Vigrid's option had activated and was already aimed at the target. Grow, Ruyi Bang, Chapter 349, Creation of Kainite 9. The greatest advantage of swallowing the Monkey King's shedding was that Yi and Wu could use the 5 elements properly. The 5 elements harnessed the power of nature. He could now use the power of nature without having to use Bian as the medium. The greater his magic power, the greater the control over nature he would have. He would be able to cause natural disasters. If this was combined with his skills and authorities, what would be the result? A black-red trajectory split through the air. It had happened so fast that the green-haired Astraeus didn't have time to react. No, to be exact, she hadn't even been able to read the attack. She felt something flash, but she just thought it was an ordinary mortal like the players of Dis Pluto. But after seeing the power within it, she belatedly realized that it wasn't something she could ignore. The holy power of multiple gods from the heavenly world who didn't belong in Tartarus. More than anything, she could feel the strength that any supernaturalist at her level would hate. The great sage, why was that crazy bastard's power here? It was too late by the time Astraeus tried to react to the power. The trajectory of the black-red power pierced through her divine artifact, Deneb. It was a barrier that could block most attacks around her, but the piece of the Ruyi Bang crushed through it and soared high up into the sky. Pooing, Deneb exploded, its pieces scattering. The monsters summoned from the darkness through Deneb were confused. The channeling that had pulled them there was disconnected. Krang, Quo, Kua, the attacks didn't stop there. Wave of fire, simmering spark. Heaven Bracket, lightning strike. The wave of fire wasn't a single explosion. The sparks that it scattered caused second and third explosions and destroyed everything in their path. If the intense lightning of Heaven Bracket could be added onto it, it would be a disaster. Krung, Quaquaquang. Hundreds of fire lightning bolts came pouring down onto the holy territory. Tartarus was always filled with darkness, but in this moment, with the lightning crashing down, it was shining brilliantly. The explosions and heat that followed swept the monsters away. Sword Purification, Villain, Expel. The fire and lightning rain included Vigrid's option. The fire always fell precisely on the designated enemies while Yi and Wu used time difference. Monsters melted in the fire. Without the guidance of Astraeus through Deneb, they were easy prey. KRRRR. Blessing Conduction. Moreover, when enemies died, a curse spread from them. The monsters who were designated as targets experienced debuffs because they were cursed. Other fighting authorities like Hogubyolsung were used at the same time, and as they combined with each other, the damage was exponentially increased. The number of dead monsters increased like how snow stuck to snow to become bigger. Agaras laughs maniacally. Vimalasitra compliments the scene you've created. Vimalasitra expresses goodwill towards you and replaces the authority he gave you with a stronger one. The authority, Black Gubatera, has been created. Black Gubatera. Rank. Authority. Proficiency 0.3%. Summary. An authority that a demon of, unaffiliated, presented to you. As an Asura whose only mission is to fight, Vimalasitra never let go of his sword even after becoming the king of kings to exceed his royal position and become emperor. While on a short break, looking down into the lower world, he was inspired by you. He threw away his affiliation with the Jia sect, discarded his position as the king of kings, and began to live as a nomad once again. Because of this, all gods and demons are afraid that the cause of their terror is roaming freely again. As a gift to you, who helped him rediscover his original resolution, he has gifted an authority that he has never even given to his apostles. Where blood flowers bloom, when attacking enemies spread across a large area, there is a 35% chance to plant flowers of blood. Blood flowers gnaw at the life and soul of the enemy and damage by 30 per second. Damage during this time cannot be recovered, and the user will be healed 1% with every blood flower that is planted. King of Asura, to your designated opponents, you will forcefully have the upper hand. Your opponent will bend down from fear, and your attack power will continue to increase with every strike. Every 15 successive hits, your destructive power will increase tenfold. Wise man's eyes. While the authority is activated, Vimalasitra's eyes will be brought down. With the knowledge of the demon who's had centuries of experience, you will gain insight into how to use it during battle. The black Gubatera that Vimalasitra gave him could work in harmony with Vigrid. It debuffed enemies in a wide range and buffed him respectively. The recovery of his magic power would scale with the number of enemies. Yian Wu liked the phrase, gnaw at the life and soul, very much. Depending on how it was used, it would make him somewhat of a divine being. Since he might need to fight with divine beings in the future, this would be a good weapon for him. Additionally, the third option open angle bracket wise man's eyes close angle bracket could be a good mark for Yian Wu, who needed many angles of attack. It was like Vimalasitra had made this authority specifically for Yian Wu. KOO. Boom. All the monsters were covered by red blood flowers after being swept away by the lightning of fire and were swimming in pain. A consecutive attack of Dragon Killer right pointing arrow flame wheel right pointing arrow wave of fire right pointing arrow lightning strike right pointing arrow blessing conduction right pointing arrow black Gubatera. Yian Wu felt all his health and magic power leave him, but he would be able to regain his strength once his body absorbed the monsters that would soon die. Furthermore, the barrage of attacks didn't stop there. Open corner bracket blessings. For the enemies who'll die. Inferno sights opened in the middle of the air, and Bu appeared with a huge book of law. Hunden sends his blessing. Authority, Faceless Law, is activated. The power of the Emerald Tablet is combined with it. The first page, How to Operate Marionettes, has opened. The knowledge that he'd absorbed from the magicians of Necropolis was helping him find his way towards the Emerald Tablet. He still mostly used the Faceless Law that Hunden gave Yian Wu, but it was a vast improvement. Croc. The Book of Law spun around as it opened to the first page. And, chet. Black fog settled down on the ground. Within it, there were tons of souls from inside the despair of the Black King. The souls entered the bodies of the dead monsters. The corpses began to move. Open corner bracket wake up. On Bu's command, each of the corpses arose like dolls. The beings with faint eyes ran at the monsters nearest to them. The monsters that had been tied to the battlefield from the blood flowers fell over from the marionettes that ran at them. It had seemed like the holy territory was going to be invaded at any moment, but the monsters all fell to the ground. The dead souls were bound to the despair of the Black King and added to Bu's power. The bone dragon had appeared in the sky and was spewing poison breath. Cernunos's blessing is being given. A holy soul is awakening. The blue spirit, Rebecca, emanated a light and split through the air in the form of a sharp breeze. Shannon and Hanryong used their signature skills in combination with the blessings of the many gods of war and brought down the monsters at a quick pace. Soon, the holy territory was covered with Yian Wu's power. No, it was covered with the authority of the Black King. All war and death were there. Agaras slaps his knees at your accomplishment. Nergal smiles with satisfaction at the countless deaths. The gods of death chuckle. The demons of war begin to judge you. You are currently being evaluated. Depending on the results, you may be able to receive various benefits and blessings. The gods of death compliment you. The demons of death wonder if they have any stronger authorities. There is currently a discussion about you. Depending on the results, your level will be decided. Yin Wu remembered a conversation he had with the martial king looking at the unbelievable scene he had created. What's the difference between a king and normal players? Yes, sir. At the time, Yin Wu didn't know how he was supposed to catch up to the martial king and asked him this question. He hadn't expected a fancy answer. The martial king always answered with, by being strong, or, doing your best, whenever he was asked questions like this. For Yin Wu, who didn't have the talent, the martial king was beyond reach. By becoming a natural disaster. A disaster. He was saying to become as powerful as a typhoon, earthquake, or volcano, something that couldn't be stopped by man. In a way, this is a natural disaster. Yin Wu thought what he created could be described as the disaster that the martial king had spoken about. He was still extremely lacking compared to the martial king, who blew away half a city with just one punch, but Yin Wu knew that he was now half a natural disaster with this. He was finally one step closer to reaching the position of the 9 kings. Swish, clasp, the Ruyi bang that reached the sky returned into his hand. Urrrrrrrng. Vigrid, black, and the Ruyi bang, white, were trembling. It almost looked glorious as the two opposing colors coalesced. Yin Wu's eyes met Hades's, who was looking down from far up above. The always cynical Hades slightly nodded at Yin Wu and resumed swinging his swords at the titans. Krrrrrr. The space seemed to shake, and 5 of the titans were blown away and were lodged into a mountain far away. Astraeus, who had lost her divine artifact Deneb and her summoned creatures, shouted in fury. Swek, she dashed at him with a murderous aura. The other titans had swallowed the light of the dead Kronos and turned into giant gods. On the other hand, Astraeus considered it foolish to let her body become so dense and had collected Kronos' light into Deneb. All the summoned creatures were from Kronos. The fact that it had cracked meant that it lost all her power. She didn't know how she would be treated by her siblings, so she was furious. She wanted to kill Yin Wu using any means possible. Yin Wu reignited his magic power and gripped Vigrid and the Ruyi bang, which were still combined as a long spear. The divine being was flying towards his direction. It was near impossible to fight against her, but, since there was no way to escape, he had to face her head-on. The problem was, I don't think I'll lose. Strangely, he was very confident. Was his ego inflated because of the disasters he had caused? But that didn't exactly seem to be it either. A message from Agaris has arrived. Message. HMPH. I see those losers in the land of death with their heads in the ground are trying to touch what's mine. A message from Agaris has arrived. Message. Accept me, let me in, then I'll help you smack the face of that loser. How's that? I don't think it's a bad offer for you. Thinking back, the lower-level divine being named Ray he met when he first arrived in Tartarus introduced himself as the captain of Dis Pluto. However, at the time, Yin Wu thought he was weaker than what he expected. A divine level was something that neither the Martial King nor the Summer Queen had been able to reach. Of course it would seem impossible Yin Wu. He thought divine beings like Hermes, Athena, and Agaris were out of his reach. No, when he first fell into Tartarus, the titan named Persis was as strong as them. But Ray definitely wasn't above the Martial King. He exuded the same aura as the 9 kings, but he couldn't touch the coattails of the Martial King or the Summer Queen. Why? He knew that not all divine beings were the same, but he wondered how they could be weaker than mortals. Astraeus was like that. Without her artifact, she seemed equally as powerful as Ray or maybe a bit stronger. Right now, about 900 gods and demons were connected with Yin Wu through the channeling. Wicked devil, he chose Agares' authorities out of all of them. His will to fight simmered over, and a beast-like personality took over. Black Gubatera, wise man's eyes. He pulled down Vimalicitra's insight on top of it. The world he saw through draconic eyes and fiery golden eyes turned into a world of black and white. Waak, taking a step into the new world, he powerfully shot forward the Ruyi bang in his hand. Krrrng, Vigrid, attached to the end of it an exploded black aura, and black flames erupted around him. Chapter 350 Creation of Kaini 10. Cup, Astraeus gasped at the power pushing her back and blowing her away. For a moment, disbelief filled her eyes. She looked at her right hand. It was recovering after being burned to a black crisp. Instinctively, she looked around. The ground flipped over, and the atmosphere was scalding. If she hadn't created a barrier with her right hand as the price, a part of her body might have been blown away. How was this possible? He was only a mortal player. She couldn't believe a mere bug that could barely live 100 years could hurt her, who had lived for eons. The strongest player in Dis Pluto had never injured her like this either. Ghost Rifle Lamb, that guy was an exception. But she couldn't compare Hades' apostle, who was on the verge of becoming a divine being, to a mere player from the lower world. Aside from that, it was impossible for a mere mortal to hurt a supernatural. Even if he had the Ruyi Bang, it was completely impossible unless he could wield the hated great sage's power properly. It was why Astraeus believed that she had made an error. That it was just a simple happening because something went wrong with her holy power as a result of Deneb breaking. She thought it would be an easy fix. She stretched out a hand filled with holy power. Open angle bracket curse of starlight close angle bracket. It was an authority of hers that forced her holy power onto her opponent and left an incurable poison. She thought it would be enough to get rid of the annoying fire, break the Ruyi Bang and his strange sword, and crack his irritating mask. But, krrrng, Yianwu thrust the Ruyi Bang forward once again. The spear was twisted, and fire condensed tightly around it, exploding it at once. Vortex. It was Benteke's signature skill that he had once used to put Yianwu in danger. A hidden god is looking at you with the help of a goddess of Olympus, Hestia. A hidden god is in shock at the skill you used. The hidden god reveals his name. A message from Poseidon has arrived. Message. How are you able to use that skill? A message from Poseidon has arrived. Message. Stop now, that is a power I gave to my apostle. It's not something you can touch. The channeling with Poseidon has been blocked due to the characteristics of Tartarus. Yianwu knew that more than 900 gazes were on him after releasing all of the authorities. Some had probably paid a price to the gods and demons who gave Yianwu his authorities to share the channeling with them temporarily. The reason he didn't pay particular attention to it was that it was better for him if more gods and demons were interested in him. But it seemed as if Poseidon had been among those watching with the help of his sister, Hestia. The goddess of the heart and protection, Hestia, had given Yianwu an authority called open angle bracket point of spark close angle bracket. Fortunately, the channeling was cut off while Poseidon was shouting in anger. It was thanks to the environment in Tartarus that the channeling from the heavenly world was blocked. I hope I don't hear from him again. The gods and demons connected to you through channelings begin to have a discussion about you. A vote is currently in progress. The case to prevent Poseidon from approaching you has been agreed upon unanimously. The channeling with Poseidon has been blocked permanently. Although he had only thought about it, the gods and demons acted as his guardian to prevent Poseidon's approach. It seemed as if they were bothered by Poseidon as well. Agaras also annoyed them, but because he treated Yianwu with goodwill, they didn't stop him. Yianwu internally smiled with satisfaction and stabbed his Ruyi Bang forward. Krrrr, quakwang. Quaquaqua. Every time a vortex came out of it, Astraeus was pushed back. Not only was her right hand crushed again, she felt danger from the consecutive attacks that followed. But Yianwu continued to stab his spear forward with determination, as if he wouldn't let go of the opportunity. Black Gubatera, wise man's eyes. Draconic eyes. Extrasensory perception. Using the detailed senses of extrasensory perception and draconic eyes on top of fiery golden eyes, he continued to attack with the authority of Vimalasitra. Astraeus was backed into a corner. The points that Vigrid aimed for were the flaws of her divinity. The eyes of Vimalasitra, who was considered the greatest of the demons of war. The great sage's Ruyi Bang and heaven bracket. And time difference, which was making detailed calculations. There was no escape for her. Quack. Vigrid, which had been following after Astraeus like a snake, pointed upward. Astraeus stretched her neck back to dodge, but it was only after Vigrid had already slashed her left eye. Kyak. A scream rang out. You have succeeded in planting a blood flower in a god of open angle bracket titan close angle bracket, Astraeus. You have critically injured a god. You have critically injured a god. You have achieved something not easily accomplished. Additional karma is being rewarded. You have gained 20,000 karma. You have gained an additional 30,000 karma. The title, One Who Hurt a God, has been added. You have unlocked a part of the hidden conditions of the artifact, Vigrid. Additional information is being given. You dare, Astraeus screamed, Her holy power moved, trying to restore her broken left eye, but strangely, it kept on dissipating. A more horrifying pain followed when it did. She belatedly realized that something strange had bloomed in her left eye and had reached her divinity. It was the grotesque seed of a demon. Blood flower. The black Gubatera was embedded in her soul. A long time ago, in the legendary era, when there wasn't order in the tower, he was the being whom all gods and demons feared. Why was the authority of the Asura king Vimalasitara here? From what she knew, Vimalasitra was a lofty being who never cared about what went on in the lower world. No, to be exact, he ignored and detested the weak. He was famous for being so picky that he hadn't taken a single apostle all those years, but he had given his greatest authority to a mere player who wasn't even his apostle. It meant one thing: he had given the power that gods and demons silently agreed was taboo to a mortal. The dangerous weapon of assassinating a divine being was in his hands. No, I'll be in real danger at this rate. Astraeus felt threatened for the first time in her life. She had been defeated by Hades's apostle, Lamb, because she had let down her guard like this in the past as well, but she felt it was more dangerous now. It was a threat to her life, something she hadn't felt after being trapped in Tartarus. Gubatera was ravenously eating away at her soul, like a poison that slowly and quietly took away her breath. Her body felt heavy. Yin Wu, after being buffed with the holy power that Gubatera swallowed, cut off Astraeus's right arm. Puak, a fountain of blood spurted from her shoulder. The blood sparkled almost unrealistically. Astraeus was now screeching. URNG. I can do it. Yin Wu felt like he could kill Astraeus. He was sure with this attack. Astraeus, a titan who had fought for authority against the gods of Olympus in the past, was weaker than the 9 kings. The only reason why she was able to look down on players was because her level was higher than theirs. But the moment there was a weapon to seal the gap between levels, she fell to the ground right away. Yin Wu didn't know why. It could have been because she hadn't trained herself as a result of being confident in her divine level, or there could have been some secret to her that players didn't know about. It didn't matter to him. If he could catch a god, he would. That was the only goal he had. Gripping the Ruyi Bang again, he relayed more vortexes towards her. He didn't have to worry about his magic power draining because the amount of holy power coming from her was immense. Hunting the owner of the power with the power he took. It was sweet. Vigrid spewed black aura again to corner her. After her right arm, it was her left arm, then her left leg, and then her right. Only her body remained as it rolled on the ground. Astraeus was in a pathetic state for a titan. When was the last time she was this humiliated? From what she could remember, it was when she was chased away from Olympus and locked in Tartarus. After that, Hades had continued to watch her, but from about 1,000 years ago, titans had the upper hand. But with Yin Wu's interference, everything was crumbling. The monsters trying to invade the holy territory were swept away, and she was in horrible shape. Moreover, Hades had suddenly begun to attack the other titans with spirit. The tide of victory was now on the temple of the king of the underworld side. The war that she thought they had won was now a mess. And Vigrid stopped right in front of her neck to finish the kill. Astraeus didn't have any choice but to say the name she didn't want to say. Typhon, I'll accept your deal, so please, rescue me. She shouted at the sky. But nothing happened. Please, Typhon. The moment that the blade was about to cut her throat, a column of light descended from the sky and wrapped around her. Krrng. The black aura was flicked away by something incredibly strong. Yin Wu raised his head with a stiff face. Something out of the ordinary was trying to appear. It was an extraordinary pressure that could look down on the great divine beings. It was a dangerous feeling that Hermes, Athena, and even Hades felt threatened by. And like a lie, the battlefield instantly fell into silence. Pluto and the monsters who had been jumping around froze. In the dead silence, like time had paused. Open hollow corner bracket such pandemonium. A huge eye was looking down from the split black clouds. It was like a being too colossal to even imagine had made a small hole in the clouds and looked through it. His eye rolled around as he quickly scanned the messed up battlefield. And even Astraeus, pathetically on the verge of death by a mortal. Open hollow corner bracket, you threw a fuss saying you could do it yourselves, yet it ended up in this state. Hades put down his sword with a frown. Typhon. There were 2 species that had caused chaos in Tartarus until now. Titans and giants. Kronos, the king of titans, was dead, only leaving behind his body, but the king of giants was still ruling over them. There were stories that he was half human, half monster. His upper body was shaped like a human while his lower body was like a snake. He had 100 snakes on his head that shot lightning and was so big that if he spread his wings apart, he could block off all the light from the sun and turn the world into darkness. The monster who had once bound Zeus to hurt him. Typhon. The god of giants was showing himself for the first time. Hermes is silent. Athena is quiet. Ares grits his teeth. Hestia looks away. The ever-so-proud gods of Olympus were keeping their silence. Open hollow corner bracket. There's a familiar face. Typhon narrowed his eyes as he turned from Astraeus to Yenwu. Open hollow corner bracket. The player that I saw from the 10 gates. The emotions in his eyes were those of amusement. Yenwu realized that the gaze that kept on following from the 10 gates was Typhon's. But Typhon turned to Hades like he didn't have anything to say. Open hollow corner bracket. This looks to be enough. How does that sound? Letting me take these good-for-nothings. You will be able to uphold your reputation as well, right? Everyone turned to Hades. His face crumpled. He was about to turn the tide of the war, but it was put on hold. He had no other choice but to nod. Pluto was exhausted from the long time they had spent on the battlefield already. If they fought longer, they might have been able to hurt the Titans, but it would be hard to stop the giants from participating in the war. Clack, he put his sword back into its sheath. It meant Typhon could do what he needed. It was a ceasefire. Open hollow corner bracket. Thank you. You, unlike that cowardly Zeus, I trust you. With that, Typhon closed his eyes. The black clouds filled in the hole, and the light shining down on Astraeus became dimmer. The presence of the giant gods was turning faint. They were going back. Astraeus was among them. That moment, Astraeus sighed in relief. Now, she could live. Although Titans had to bow to the giants now, they had to live for Thray to be a next time. Wait and see, human. Astraeus hardened her resolve to rip the human who made her like this into shreds. But, what? She looked down at Yenwu to see his hateful face before returning to her holy territory, but something was flying towards her. Like when Deneb was broken, the Ruyi Bang was coming in her direction in the shape of a long spear. But he had probably seen Hades and Typhon agree to a ceasefire earlier. He was breaking it that easily. A mere mortal, that was the last thought she had. Congratulations. You have succeeded in killing a god. You have achieved something not easily accomplished. Additional karma is being rewarded. You gained 100,000 karma. You gained an additional 200,000. A new reward is being given. It will take some time for the reward to be chosen. You have gained the title, God Killer. All gods watching the situation are shocked. All demons watching the situation are smiling creepily. A few gods look at you negatively. A few demons express new thoughts about the level that will be given to you. The ceasefire between Hades and Typhon has been broken. Chapter 351 Pluto 1. Stuck in Astraeus's body, the Ruyi Bang trembled. Chech. Astraeus's body scattered with black smoke and began to be absorbed by the Ruyi Bang. A letter was engraved at the end of it. Steria. Astraeus's name was engraved, and the Ruyi Bang split apart again, falling into Yenwu's hands. All those who had been watching stiffened. A few of them couldn't understand what had happened. What Yenwu had done was beyond anyone's imagination. Sealing a god. The authority that made gods and demons consider the great sage as the evilest had activated. The souls of gods and demons were forced into the prison of the Ruyi Bang, and their authorities would be given to its owner. You are absorbing divine blessings. You are absorbing divine blessings. The process of awakening your demonic divine dragon body is continuing. Crunch, crunch. Yenwu could feel the amount of divine blessings in his body multiply after killing Astraeus and gaining the title of God Assassin. His soul was boosted, cells stiff. His senses were greatly sharpened. Be careful of outer impact. But even in such a situation, those who had been watching the battlefield couldn't step up easily. The killing of a god was shocking, but it was more unbelievable that the ceasefire was broken in just a few seconds. Hades and Typhoon were both rulers of Tartarus. A ceasefire in their names had great meaning in that it could influence their statuses. However, the ceasefire had been broken by a mere mortal who wasn't even in Pluto. Although Astraeus was considered one of the weakest titans, she was still a god, with a divine level. A supernatural had been killed too simply. Even in Tartarus, where all kinds of strange phenomena happened, a god had never been killed before. No one had imagined it. But it just happened. Hades' subordinates quickly looked towards Hades. It was to rescue Hades, who had probably been impacted after the ceasefire among greater beings was broken. If Hades was in a critical state, Typhoon and the other giants with him could come back to attack again. But, ha ha ha, a crazy bastard like the great sage and Alpharon existed. Hades burst out laughing, looking at Yi and Wu. He was acting completely different from his usual cynical side. And he didn't seem injured at all. How, maybe, his fast subordinates were able to see what had happened. The ceasefire of Hades and Typhoon was largely of two identities, Pluto and the Titans and Giants. But Yi and Wu wasn't affiliated with either. He had fought with Pluto, but he wasn't Hades' subordinate, and he wasn't connected to the Holy Territory either. His sudden interference hadn't broken the ceasefire. What an incredible coincidence. It's not. It's too miraculous to be called a coincidence. It can't be something he did out of calculation, right? They suspected that what Yi and Wu did wasn't impulsive but thoroughly calculated. They trembled because if it was really planned, it was truly incredible. This wasn't something possible with just calculations. If just a little went wrong, if the system judged him as an ally of Pluto, there would have been a great penalty. You had to have guts to attempt it. What's everyone doing, not protecting him? Pluto got themselves together on Hades' cold command and began to move to protect Yi and Wu. Because the deal was broken, it was possible the Titans could attack. But, open hollow corner bracket, how amusing. Typhoon's eye was opened through the clouds again, like he was thinking the same as Hades. The eye was definitely smiling. Open hollow corner bracket very. With those words, he quietly vanished. The column of light that surrounded the Titans was gone, and a silence descended onto the battlefield. Everyone was blankly looking at Yi and Wu, who was standing alone in the middle of the battlefield. Khan and the rest of them arrived half a day after the battle was over. They had heard from Brahm that the temple of the king of the underworld was surrounded by Titans and ran at full speed to arrive. What greeted them was a messy battlefield where the battle was already over. Soldiers were sitting on the ground, gasping for breath. They all looked exhausted. There was a rotting smell from the corpses of the monsters, but they didn't have the mind to clean it up. The castle walls were half crumbled, and most of the barrier was caved in. No one in the party could tell what had happened. Only Brahm, who was once a divine being, realized the situation and mumbled. Things are more messed up than I thought. He thought that the situation in Tartarus was worse than he expected. Anyone could tell after looking at the Holy Territory. A Holy Territory was a location where the gods will descended. It was the only house where a god could stay in the lower world. If such a place was in critical condition, it was obvious how bad things were around it. Did you follow Cain? Just then, someone quietly approached them. She was a small woman with short hair that came down to her shoulders. But the eyes that flashed through her lion's mane of hair were sharp. The aura she gave off was violent as an aftermath of the battle. However, the party was surprised for another reason. She was a player like them. They had heard that players left for Tartarus to train themselves, but they didn't know they would meet one so quickly. Yes, Brahm nodded on behalf of everyone. The woman scanned the party and spoke in a dry voice. Lord Hades ordered me to take you to him. Follow me. The woman only said what she had to and turned around. She didn't seem to care whether the party followed her or not. Khan looked at Brahm, wondering what to do. Let's follow. It looks like Hades sent his apostle. Brahm nodded and quietly followed after the woman. The rest of the party looked at the woman with surprised eyes as they walked behind her. An apostle of Hades? That meant she was as powerful as Benteke, who was Poseidon's apostle. No, just based on her aura. She seems stronger. How powerful is she? I've never heard of there being such a strong person. Khan looked the woman up and down as he muttered to himself. The woman stopped and glared at Khan. I'll warn you now, don't do anything unnecessary. Here, your neck will be slashed if you do anything like that, and no one will blink twice. Khan rubbed his neck unknowingly. He felt shivers in that short moment. The woman began to walk with those words again, but Khan was left standing there in a cold sweat. She might be on the level of the 9 kings. Long time no see, Hades. There were glares from all around. A murderous intent to run at the person who called their master's name boiled in the air. Brahm didn't care. He was once one of the 3 main gods of open-angle bracket diva close-angle bracket. Though he had lost his authority after gaining a physical body, leaving the heavenly world, and being defeated by Agorist to become a player's subordinate, it didn't mean his personality from the past had disappeared. Moreover, Hades was one of the few who was well acquainted with Brahm. It was because they both hated the heavenly world. Hades waved his hand on his throne to calm his subordinates down. Then, he rested his chin in his hand and smirked. My generals are still on edge from the battle. I hope you understand. I do. Great. Anyways, it's been a while, Brahma. You've come in a hilarious state. It could seem like he was laughing at Brahm for not even being immortal. But Brahm knew that Hades always spoke cynically, since Hades always viewed the world coldly like he did. However, although he had changed a bit after meeting Sesha, Brahm seemed to have gotten even more sharp and thorny. Brahm shrugged. I'm in a rather pathetic state. But it's fun. Fun, yes. I feel free after throwing away those annoying things. Hades narrowed his eyes, as if he was trying to find something. Then, he snorted when a smile spread across Brahm's face. You were a psycho who used to shout at Shiva. I can't get used to this side of you. Why don't you throw away your heavy burden, too? You're too hard-working, unlike your brothers who always wreak havoc. Thanks, but I'd like it if you didn't say meaningless things. Brahm internally clicked his tongue. In fact, he didn't think that Hades could abandon his responsibilities either. That was how important it was. The responsibility of being the oldest brother of Olympus. The obligation to stop the titans and giants. The sincerity to rule over the beyond properly. It was what made Hades into the Hades of today. The problem is that they're slowly consuming him. The guy who was suffering from all the responsibilities couldn't help but crumble trying to stop the rebellion of the titans and giants, no matter how strong he was. But he didn't ask Olympus for help, and he even kept it a secret from his wife, Persephone, as there's something else going on. Brahm thought to himself, but he didn't ask Hades. Although gods and demons were tied to their many societies, each of them was an individual being. It would be disrespectful to ask Hades why he made his decision. Aside from that, Brahm was more interested in quickly making Kaini and finding clues about where Cha Jungwoo was. There was no need to do more work than necessary. But where did you send Master? He was still connected to Yian Wu, but the connection was so faint that he couldn't see Yian Wu's precise location. Even if he spoke to him, it wasn't delivered because something was blocking it. Hearing the words, Master, from Brahma. It's worth living all this time to see this. Don't try to change the subject. Where is he? Hades pointed to the ground. Brahm frowned. The underground, in prison. What? He dared to break the ceasefire under my name. Brahm gripped his forehead. It seemed like his master had caused another incident. Looking around, he saw the faces of Hades' subordinates were dark. But they weren't malicious. They just looked a bit uncomfortable, like they weren't quite sure. A few of them even seemed relieved. Seems like our master found another sly way to cause chaos. Pretty sly. He got Astraeus. Quote exclamation mark quote. This time, Brahm was surprised. The others had blank faces, not knowing who Astraeus was. Cain caught a god. Quote exclamation mark quote. Quote exclamation mark quote. The feat of killing a god was legendary among players. There were rumors about Alpharon on the 77th possibly being able to do it, but it had been done by Yian Wu. She's puny for a titan, but that's still incredible. Ha ha ha. Brahm laughed, saying Yian Wu was qualified to be his master. The expressions of Khan and the others became stranger. Then, Brahm smiled coldly. He wet his lips. A type of magic message dug into Hades' ear. Open hollow corner bracket. The secret of levels could leak into the lower world. Are you okay with that? Hades snorted. He responded with his physical voice. Do you think I won't be able to handle it? Those who can't are just fools. The subordinates and players looked at him with questioning eyes, not knowing what he was talking about. You're the same as ever. You don't change easily. Fine. Then, back to what we were talking about. Brahm smiled again, then asked with serious eyes. What's our master doing below? Had he already begun to create Kaini? I don't know. What? He was the one who said he wanted to be stuck down there. I've committed a crime, so I'll accept my punishment. Please lock me up. Hades thought of how Yian Wu had walked past his shocked soldiers and spoken to him confidently. From what he saw, Yian Wu wasn't one to surrender himself that easily. It was clear there was something he had in mind. What was he trying to do this time? Hades smirked, unaware of the fact he was doing so. For the first time in his boring life in Tartarus, there was something that stimulated him. Meanwhile, in the underground prison, the awakening of the demonic divine dragon body is near complete. The process of formation is commencing. Crunch, crunch, Yian Wu was recreating his body while withstanding immense pain. Chapter 352 Dis Pluto 2. After everyone left, only Hades and Doyle remained in the grand hall. Hades smiled bitterly looking at Doyle, who exuded Persephone's scent. On the other hand, Doyle was expressionless, as if he was wearing a mask. Hades's smile turned even bitter. It was a smile of sadness. He broke the silence. Have you been well, Persephone? Yian-Wu's body was burning with heat. Part of it was the fever that came from attempting his reawakening, but most of it was due to the 900 channelings still connected to him after the battle was over. He had to both cool his fever and focus on the awakening process at the same time. Hermes looks at you with interest. Ares clenched his fists, saying men should be strong. Hundon quietly watches you. A message from Agares has arrived. Message: get rid of those lowly divine blessings and take what I offer. Messages from Agares have been temporarily blocked by the authority of other gods and demons. Athena paces around, thinking of what she can do to help. Thanatos watches you. Nergal watches you. Osiris watches you. Vimalasitra hopes there is a path in your penance. Cernunnos is silent. Yian-Wu was dizzy from the messages that kept on popping up, but he was having a good time. Nothing felt better than becoming stronger. It was also a good opportunity to see where the end of his potential was after swallowing the Summer Queen and the Monkey King's shedding. Walk. As soon as the thought left his mind, black and gold light combined around his body to create a strange phenomenon. The light drew 3 different flowers and turned into a red snake to enter Yian-Wu's head. The one-horned tribe was detailed in how they classified the different peaks of martial arts. From the 3 flowers gathering to the red snake. The peak that combined the different internal energies as one and swallowed it to further the growth of the soul in the body. It was proof that he had reached the ends of the expert level. The deeper his soul became, the more his body followed, and the awakening process entered its final stages. When divine blessings were imprinted into the deepest parts of his cells and the dragon and demonic blessings had reached a balance. The moment the dragon and demonic blessings, which had been fighting for control, couldn't move anymore as they were put into a 3-way confrontation, the process finished. The divine blessings are awakening. The divine blessings are awakening. The divine blessings have successfully settled. Divine blood will be added to your demonic and dragon blood. Divinity is firmly engraved into your demonic and dragon bones. You have succeeded in combining divine, demonic, and draconic blessings. The change of your properties was completed successfully. Demonic dragon body has been upgraded to demonic divine dragon body. This is the first of its kind to be created. Nothing is known about the potential and limits of the body. Uncover information about the body yourself. You have achieved something not easily accomplished. Additional karma is being provided. You have gained 100,000 karma. You have gained an additional 200,000 karma. You have gained clues about divinity and supernaturalness. The gods of death watch you. The demons of death watch you. The gods of war bless you. The demons of death are discussing your level again. They need more time for their judgment. Yian-Wu slowly opened his eyes. He was in a place that was just big enough for a single person to lie down. White walls, ceilings, and the iron bars were all he had. He requested to be put in here because he didn't want to be bothered by anyone when he was awakening and working through the fever. Thankfully, there were no interruptions, and the awakening was finished. The words, first of its kind, stood out to Yian-Wu the most. It seemed it was true that although there were dragons who became demonic, none of them made deals with gods. Did something change? When he first created his demonic dragon body, he couldn't even attempt to control his overflowing power. He was able to reach the 3rd awakening as a result of it. However, the demonic divine dragon body was quite different. Although the system messages were saying a lot had changed, Yian-Wu didn't know what had. He felt normal. No, the divine fever is gone. He realized that the fever that had burned his body up had completely disappeared. It wasn't because the channelings vanished either. He could feel the 900 gazes on him. No, they were even clearer than before. He could feel where, how, and who was watching him. This is Hermes here, Athena here, and Cernunnos there. And this is Vimalasitra. Yian-Wu pointed with his finger and muttered to himself. Hermes nods with satisfaction. Athena tears up, touched. Cernunnos silently watches you. Vimalasitra blesses you for finishing your penance. Agares is mad that you didn't call his name. A message from Agares has arrived. Message: why didn't you call? Messages from Agares have been temporarily blocked by the authority of other gods and demons. Agares has released the block with his authority. A message from Agares has arrived. Message. You guys must have gone nuts. Messages from Agaras have been temporarily blocked by the authority of other gods and demons. Yin Wu ignored Agaras, who was running rampant once again, and examined each of the channelings. He could feel the individual supernatural beings connected with him like they were all right next to him. The characteristics of the authorities are different. Is this divinity? Yin Wu had only focused on the traits and effects of the authorities as he used them. They were only tools. But now that he was able to sense them more deeply, he realized that wasn't everything. The depth of authorities had no end. He was able to check the general positions of each god and demon as well as their divinities. He could tell how Thanatos and Nergal were both gods of death, but he couldn't discern any other information. The category of their authorities was death, but the detailed information within it was vastly dissimilar. Now that he could feel them, it was obvious that he would be able to use the authorities more proficiently. Of course, that didn't mean the 900 authorities were all settled. There were still some difficult parts, but he probably wouldn't faint anymore after releasing them all. That was a huge development. Yin Wu opened the information window to look closer. Trait: demonic divine dragon body. Summary: dragons, demons, and gods have been the highest species at the top of the world with their supernaturality since the beginning of time. There hasn't been a case of having every single one of their blessings, so the possibilities are endless. Accomplishing the first of its kind will lead you on the path of the demonic divine dragon that will soon be born. Gold dragon: you can further the authorities of dragons, demons, and gods. Domain of dragons, demons, and gods: you can declare your own domain, Bina, over a specified territory based on your qualifications. Dragons, demons, and gods, knowledge: according to your qualifications, you can view Hakma, that dragons investigated, Netzith, that demons created, and Ayasid, that gods created. Dragons, demons, and gods, authorities: according to your qualifications, you can activate Keter, that dragons learned, Tiferet, that demons mastered, and Chesed, that gods set up. However, there was near nothing he could learn from the information window. It seemed that he would have to figure it out for himself since his body was the first of its kind. Closing the window, he sat cross-legged on the floor. He was going to learn the exact condition of his body. And I have to check divinity and supernaturality. His consciousness faded below. That night, Hades ordered Yin Wu to leave the prison and begin creating Kaini right away. Since he had broken the ceasefire, Typhoon could come attacking with the titans and giants any time. Hades wanted to prepare for what could come by finishing the great artifact. There was still a military air around the territory. Here, call for me if you need anything. Lam led the party to the smithy. It was clear she would never have taken them there if it wasn't for Hades's orders. She left after glowering at Yin Wu. Yin Wu knew why Lam was acting like that. He was treated in two polar opposite ways by Displuto. They either glared at him or encouraged him. The former group was angry for breaking the ceasefire, and the latter was glad that he killed a titan. Yin Wu didn't care about either of them. His head was filled with thoughts of finishing Kaini and undoing the seal on the pocket watch. Open hollow corner bracket. It's been a while. Open hollow corner bracket. Ah. I didn't know I'd be back here again. The Cyclops Brontes and Sterapis were emotional as they looked around the smithy. The youngest, Argas, rubbed his eyes that were brimming with tears. He never would have imagined that the three brothers would be able to work here again. He had only ever dreamed about it. Unlike the emotional Cyclops, there's too much to touch. How were they able to create weapons here all this time? That must have been how bad the situation was. It's a wonder they were able to last in the fight against the Titans. Brahm, Victoria, and Henov aside. With just a glance, they could tell it was a mess. There were only a few furnaces that worked, and tools like the hammer and anvil were so old that it was incredible that they hadn't crumbled. There wasn't any metal left in the shed either. It seemed impossible to fix the place up. The weaponries of the large clans in the lower world seemed better off. Hades was once famous for being the wealthiest out of all the gods and demons. But now, that was all gone, and nothing was left. Argas had a glum face. The blacksmiths who used to look down on Hephaestus of open-angle bracket Olympus close-angle bracket once upon a time were no more. But the fire seems different. Yin Wu looked at the fire burning in the furnace. On the outside, there was nothing that stood out about it, but there was a bundle of flaws that he could see with his draconic eyes. Argas nodded like it was obvious. It should be. It's the first fire that was brought from light when the world was trapped in darkness at the beginning of time. It's also Prometheus's treasure. That's the only pride left of this smithy, with everything else broken. Yi and Wu's gaze turned in its direction. The rest of the party looked surprised as well. Then this. Argus nodded heavily. Lucille's light. It's fire from his soulstone. Quote exclamation mark quote. Quote exclamation mark quote. Yi and Wu reflexively moved his hand to the pocket watch. Click, clack, the pocket watch vibrated at the tip of his fingers, like sparks shaking in the wind. Open hollow corner bracket then let's get to work. The oldest, Brontes, rolled up his sleeves and widened his eyes with determination. Chapter 353 Dis Pluto 3. The creation of Kaini has begun. Open hollow corner bracket let's look at the materials first. The Cyclops brothers took charge of the process. Yi and Wu pulled out the materials he brought in front of Brontes. When he took out the core material, the adamantine nova, Brontes tightened his fists. Open hollow corner bracket you really brought it. The adamantine was made of condensed adamantium, a mineral that was hard to obtain even in the tower. They called it a miracle when even a tiny bit of it was found. The basic material for Kaini was the adamantine nova. A lot of adamantium was needed. But what Yi and Wu brought was more than enough to make Kaini. It was also extremely pure, like a master had crafted it. Open hollow corner bracket what's left over can strengthen the arsenal of Dis Pluto immensely. That's mine. Brontes spoke excitedly, but Yi and Wu dampened his mood. He felt like he had been splashed with cold water. Open hollow corner bracket what? I would like to make this clear before we start. Everything here is mine, please don't forget. Open hollow corner bracket. Giving Kaini to Hades is only the price for the favor he's doing me. Brontes's face crumpled. Open hollow corner bracket what are you talking about? The safety of Tartarus is at stake. The titans and giants rising up will cause huge. Only to Olympus. Open hollow corner bracket what? Am I wrong? Yi and Wu looked at Brontes and the other Cyclops with steady eyes. At the same time, he showed them the channelings he was connected to. Brontes gasped. So many entities were gazing down at him. They were intense and fearsome. Each was the eyes of gods and demons of a superior level. Other than a few, they were looking at Brontes sardonically with disapproval. Only Athena and Hermes, gods from open angle bracket Olympus close angle bracket, were pitying him. Even Ares was sneering at him. Only then was Brontes able to realize their situation. The titans and giants were only beings who were chased away after fighting for the rule of open angle bracket Olympus close angle bracket. Gods and demons from other societies couldn't care less. It didn't concern them anyway. The titans and giants could invade the stages after the 30th floor once they successfully invaded Tartarus. But there would be guardians and other gods and demons watching them. Even if there was chaos, it wouldn't be as bad as what open angle bracket Olympus close angle bracket was going through. Yi and Wu was saying this was their problem, not his, so they shouldn't force him to do anything. What was more, Brontes felt like his soul was being pressed down by Yi and Wu's every word. He couldn't breathe. The fact that he felt breathless although he was already dead was ironic, but he really was. It was like the connection he had with Yi and Wu was strangling him. The chains bound him more tightly the more he tried to resist. He couldn't even think negatively of Yi and Wu. Magic power was making him bend to his will and follow him. Respect him. Submit to him. Although there was no sound, it was like voices were ringing in his ear. As if trying to hypnotize him. He realized he couldn't rebel against Yi and Wu. He thought of trying to destroy himself, but that didn't seem possible either. His promise to destroy his own soul if Yi and Wu did things for personal gain had already lost its meaning. He had lost control over his own soul. It was just a part of Yi and Wu's collection. How was this possible? No matter how far his level had fallen, he was once a divine being. The fact that he was bound by a mere mortal was already unbelievable. No, was it different because Yi and Wu was a god killer? Brontes suddenly felt scared of Yi and Wu. The player who he had only considered to be a tool to benefit Hades and Dis Pluto looked like a beast who would swallow them. A beast with fierce eyes and sharp teeth. Open hollow corner bracket all right. For now. Brontes had no choice but to bend to him. Since Yi and Wu had complete control, he had to listen to him. Starapus, who was relatively more logical and reasonable than Brontes, sealed his lips as he looked in front of him. It was obvious who was victorious in the battle of wits between Yi and Wu and his older brother. Will you be alright pressing them like that? Kreutz carefully walked up to Yi and Wu's side and asked, but Yi and Wu resolutely shook his head. You have to be firm about these things from the beginning. Yi and Wu didn't have plans to lose his dominance anytime soon. The first step, refinement, has begun. Current progress, 2%. Open hollow corner bracket. The most important thing is to work the fire of the beginning of time. Brontes pointed at the furnace meant to melt the adamantine nova. His face was stiff as he explained, but he was only focused on the process. Is there a reason why? Open hollow corner bracket. It's the only fire that can melt the adamantine nova without damaging it. As the fire from a soul stone. Open hollow corner bracket. Right. What Lord Hades attained a long time ago, the stone of Castitas. The soul stone was split in 14 pieces, the 7 virtues and the 7 deadly sins. One of them was in Hades's possession. Argus had been creating weapons using its fire. It was the reason why Pluto was able to last this long. The fire of the beginning blazed in Yi and Wu's eyes. If I can learn how to use it. With this, he became sure that it was just the Cyclops brothers who could use the soulstone properly. If he could learn how, he could unlock the seal on the pocket watch. Open hollow corner bracket. But we're the only ones who can deal with the fire. The flames can swallow souls if used incorrectly. So in the meantime, I'd like for you to do something else. Before Brontes could finish, Heneva headed for the furnace. He had been looking around with a bored face. Brontes tried to stop him, but Heneva was already blowing the bellows. And, whoosh, the fire is too strong. Although the heat capacity of adamantium is high, if the heat isn't spread around, there may be impurities mixed in it later. Right. Open hollow corner bracket. That's true. I'll watch the molten metal. No matter how high the quality, the impurities have to be ridden of as much as possible for the holiness to melt into it. Heneva sat next to the furnace and began to blow at the bellows. The fire swooshed up and settled back down again. He didn't look like he was struggling. Rather, he looked comfortable, like it was better to be next to the fire than in the dangerous outside. Open hollow corner bracket. Is it because you're a black dwarf? Brontes looked at Heneva with surprise and cleared his throat, pulling out the other materials. There were 45 apotis scales. Open hollow corner bracket. You have to close this off on the inside so the movement of holy power is smooth. But the formula is too completed that it won't be. I'll take care of this. I'll help too. Before Brontes finished, Brahm took the apotis scales. Victoria followed him. Brontes frantically tried to stop them. Open hollow corner bracket. You know how to engrave the formula. If you're incorrect, then everything will go wrong. Everything will go wrong. That's it. Brahm raised his eyebrows. Brontes remembered what Brahm's identity was. Open hollow corner bracket. Everything will go wrong, sir. Brahm laughed. Don't I have to combine the Catherine liquid and the blood from Hadeth's heart by a ratio of 3:1 and boil the Trajan with it at 190 degrees for 3 days? And then, after that, I can resonate their sounds with the demonic cores. Right. Open hollow corner bracket. Why, yes. I'd prefer it if you didn't act smart next time. I probably know more about this than you. Brahm took Victoria to the side and began work on the formulas. After that, other than the process relating to refinement, Yi and Wu's party was able to do things faster than the 3 Cyclops brothers. All Brontes did was tell them the order of how to create kine. It was actually better for them to do the detailed work. There were times when Heneva's methods were more efficient, and when Brahm voiced his opinions, things progressed even more quickly. The most knowledgeable out of them, Starapus, was surprised many times. Yi and Wu's party was better with efficiency and speed. They had been looking down on them because they were mortals, so they were shocked. Open hollow corner bracket. Did our skills rust or did the world improve while we were sleeping? It might be both. Starapus and Argus looked at the process with strange expressions. The creation is progressing quickly. The refinement has finished. The smelting is 34% done. The forging is 19% done. It was a quicker pace than what the Cyclops brothers expected. It was all thanks to the fact that they had split up the work. Heneva, Brahm, and Victoria took care of their jobs perfectly, and their results all fell into place cleanly like one person had done it all. At some point, Argus's disciples had begun to move busily. Brontes's hammer moved quickly as he dealt with the core material. Clang, clang, clong. Kine was the pride of open-angle bracket Olympus close-angle bracket, one of the 3 great artifacts. They thought it would take a while for it to be made. They had even expected the attack of titans and giants while they were creating it. It seemed they were mistaken. Still, the speed was unbelievable. Brahm's knowledge was already greater than what divine beings had. He hadn't been called Brahma of creation for nothing. Moreover, he had once created the Philosopher's Stone, the endgame of alchemy. The three Cyclops brothers were also busy hammering, eager not to be defeated. The speed of the creation process couldn't be anything but fast. Yin Wu was carefully watching the process with his draconic eyes. The proficiency of draconic eyes has increased dramatically. 82, 83, 84%, 96, 97%. The field of what you can see of Hakma has expanded. Netzith is being remade. Iasid begins to take form. Fiery golden eyes are connected. The traits of divine demonic dragon body are applied. His draconic eyes, which had grown significantly when he created the Philosopher's Stone, had grown again. With fiery golden eyes added on top of it, his understanding grew deeper, and he could apply divinity as well. The divinity he had gained when he caught Astraeus was nothing more than a fancy name. Clue of divinity, the clue of level. It'll be applied in various fields. The more it is stacked up, the greater the effect, and the growth of your soul will also be influenced. In other words, it meant that he could use it as a booster for skills and blessings. No, to be exact, it was readjusting all the attributes he already had for his demonic divine dragon body. Thanks to it, Yin Wu could grow his draconic eyes quickly. The proficiency of draconic eyes had increased. 98, 99%, 100%. Congratulations! The proficiency of draconic eyes has reached its max. All attributes related to the skill increase. Strength has increased by 15. Magic power has increased by 20. You have gained new understanding related to your skill. Superior skills are being unlocked. The superior skill, Heavenly Draconic Eyes, is unlocked. The proficiency of Heavenly Draconic Eyes has increased dramatically and has reached its max. A new skill is being found after calculating your attributes. The skill, Divine Draconic Eyes, is unlocked. Yin Wu gained a new, superior skill that was at the level of his extrasensory perception. The refinement is finished. The forging is finished. The grafting is finished. Only the last process, granting holiness, remains. Current progress, 98%. After about 10 days, Kaini was shaped, and only the final step was left. Chapter 354 Dis Pluto 4. Team, Yahiko, Thursdays 9/10. I did wonder, but I didn't think you would finish it so quickly. Hades laughed in disbelief. It was the type of laughter for when unexpected luck suddenly came in one's way. His long mist helm was right in front of him. Kaini. The powerful artifact that allowed him to kill Kronos during the war with the Titans. It had helped him be silent as death but disappeared too easily, like a sandcastle washed away by waves. Open hollow corner bracket. Try it, sir. Brontes, Steropus, and Argus were bowing with emotional faces. Hades nodded, moving his hand towards Kaini. Black light shot out from the ends of his hand into the helm. Granting holiness. It was the process of binding the artifact to its owner. A black energy spread around the throne. It was bright, but it seemed holy. Open hollow corner bracket. Finally, the three Cyclops brothers trembled from old memories while Yin Wu read the changes occurring around Kaini with heavy eyes. His eyes settled heavily as his second pair of eyes opened. Divine Draconic Eyes. Rank. Authority. Summary. An authority from the ancient dragon, Calidus. Dragons can see many things as they grow. Of those, there is a side of the truth that humans will never be able to see, so many different types of knowledge can be discovered. Observer's perspective, the eyes to observe and discover all things. They can quickly learn information about items or people they see. As a result, they can see the flow of flaws and holes. The greater the proficiency, the more they can see. Eyes of the Absolute. Dragons are beings who are ahead of all other species from birth. No being could be the same after meeting their eyes, and they discourage the spirits of their opponents. It will be applied to all skills of authorities related to eyes. Currently connected skills. Fiery golden eyes. Eyes of the Monkey King. A part of the great sage's power is borrowed to open heaven bracket. Wise man's eyes. Eyes of Vimalasitra. You can share a part of the Asura King's old experiences. Question mark. The moment Divine Draconic Eyes opened for the first time, Yin Wu realized that he was walking a new path. Draconic Eyes were only used by young dragons. No dragons used Draconic Eyes after they had grown to their full sizes. They had already learned too many things after living for over 1,000 years. However, the ancient dragon Calidus was different. After organizing his knowledge, he had created a new authority. Those eyes were passed down to Yian-Wu. A hidden being is watching you. Yian-Wu thought that the ancient dragon Calidus, who was somewhere in the dragon's temple on the 50th floor, had given it to him so he could grow further. There was no way he could use an authority without an owner so easily. The skill effects of divine draconic eyes are being applied to view the great artifact, Kine. Kine, type, helm, rank, great artifact, summary, the artifact of Hades, a god of open angle bracket Olympus close angle bracket. It has the same properties as his symbol that contributed a lot to the Titanomachia. However, its traits haven't been unlocked because holiness hasn't been granted to it. Holiness is in the process of being granted. You have an authority to use, Kine, that is separate from its owner Hades. However, if you activate your authority, you may cause Hades to become angry, so be aware. There were 2 lines from Kine shown by the divine draconic eyes. One was towards Hades, and the other was towards Yian-Wu. This was probably displaying who had the authority to use it. Yian-Wu's line was clearer because holiness wasn't fully granted to it yet. Yian-Wu knew that if he focused consciousness on the connection, Kine would react instantly. And the result that would come after. The Black King's set will be finished here. He was tempted. If the set of the Black King was completed, he would be closer to the power of death that he desperately wanted. He could be a clue closer to finding his little brother. However, that will be the end. Would he be able to handle the fury of Hades and Pluto? Yian-Wu didn't think so. Even if they were focused on the war against the titans and giants, there wasn't much that could stop a god's wrath. He could be stuck in Tartarus without an exit. Furthermore, there was no guarantee that he could use the Black King's set to its full power just because he completed it. When I first gained grief, the options didn't unlock right away. There might be another condition for the third piece, the cast. He wanted to take it slow and steady. The message that he had completed the quest hadn't popped up yet, but he had kept his promise to give Kine to Hades, so the 3 Cyclops brothers would help him. I can try to unlock the seal on the pocket watch. I can try for Kine after that. He could contribute to the war and receive Kine as a reward, but it would be hard to do so with the Apostle Lamb still around. He decided to take his time with his decision. Depending on the situation, it could change anytime. The holiness granting process would take more than a couple of days to be completed. There was still some time left. Current progress, 99%. Hades quietly took his hands off of Kine and let out a sigh of relief. While Yian-Wu's party was giving Kine to Hades. This is where you'll stay. Khan, Doyle, Galliard, and Kreutz were visiting Pluto with Lamb's guidance. Unlike Yian-Wu and the others who were participating in creating Kine, they were assigned as combat members as they didn't have any talents in crafting. How cold. Khan clicked his tongue internally as he followed Lamb. He had felt that Lamb didn't like any of them since he first met her. No, it was more accurate to say that she was wary of them, like a cat who was wary of other cats in its territory. But we have to be closer for life to be easier in the future. It didn't seem like it was time yet. He could approach her slowly to make her lower her guard. Khan straightened his back unknowingly. He felt like he could see Victoria's narrowed eyes for some reason. What, it's not like I'm in that kind of relationship with the granny anyway. And I'm not saying I'm gonna seduce Hades' apostle either. He made ridiculous excuses to himself and quickly changed the direction of his thoughts. Anyway, his eyes shined as he looked around the base. I didn't know there would be this many players. Doyle suddenly spoke with awe. Tartarus was a hidden stage, not many knew of its existence. Moreover, it was extremely hard to reach. He had heard that there were some people who came here because they weren't satisfied with the mountains of penances on the 20th floor. Upon seeing it for himself, there was more than what he expected. Most of the soldiers were players. He could even see rankers who had disappeared from the tower long ago. It was incredible, since this is the place with the most intense fighting in the entire tower. Yian-Wu was just exceptional in how he continued to grow every day. Most players stopped growing after some point. The easiest way to overcome it was through battle. There was much to gain in a fight to the death. It was understandable that players came here. However, because of the frequent collisions with divine beings, the mortality rate of players was probably high. The fact that so many players were here despite the dangers. That's how helpful being in Tartarus is to them. Jinx. Quote. Khan suddenly reached over to pinch him. Doyle frowned, wondering what strange thing Khan was doing now. You said the same thing I was about to say. How can you still be so childish? Never mind. They said people changed after going through something big. Seeing Khan the same as ever, he couldn't help but sigh. Khan grinned and slapped Doyle's back. Why are you sighing so much? Let's smile a little. Doyle shook his head then grinned. This was probably how Khan was able to save him without giving up. As he was thinking those thoughts, there was a sudden commotion from a section in the base. Khan and Doyle turned in that direction. Galliard and Kreutz looked as well and turned stiff. They were all horribly injured, like they had just been in battle. However, their eyes were as sharp as ever. Why is the Elohim here? Of the 8 large clans, the Elohim stood out the most. It was probably because of their arrogant way of thinking, that they were superior to all others. The people who stood out in the chaotic crowd were acting like them. While players were congratulating them, they accepted the compliments like it was obvious. The woman in the front seems to be the head of the family of life and production in the family of light. But she's in horrible condition. The leader of the Elohim group was a woman with short hair, Panath. Ether was following her like a dog. The golden headband was tied around his neck like a leash. While Yi and Wu left Tartarus to look for materials, Panath's party had teamed up with Pluto to help them. They distinguished themselves in battle, leaving for expeditions on their own to invade the territory of Titans, steal their castles, or destroy the cores of the monsters. They had become the center of Pluto. Even now, while the Titans were attacking the holy territory, they had been successful in fending them off. She had aimed for where the defense was weaker, hunting a Titan who had been alone. And the result, a god of open angle bracket Olympus close angle bracket, Poseidon, is glad you gained the title, God Assassin, and gives you a new blessing. Hestia is with him, Demeter is with him, Hera is with him. The Titan Megaera's head was on the platter she brought. From Astraeus to Megaera, and they say that Kaini will soon be created. We might be able to win this war. Hades' secretaries, the lower-level divine beings, were excited. Panath nodded without much emotion, already having heard everything on her way there. However, Ether, who was following her like a dog, knew that she was extremely displeased. She was supposed to have all the honor and glory for defeating Megaera, but someone else had gained the title of God Assassin before her, taking all the honor and glory she was supposed to receive. The Hoarder. He was back. She ground her teeth. He was someone she had to meet sometime, but it was annoying that he made her accomplishment pale in comparison. She tried to calm herself down. There was no need for her to show enmity here. She had to fight against the Hoarder someday anyway. A message from Poseidon has arrived. Message. As you promised, rip all of them apart. Don't let any of them live. Not a single one. Panath spoke to Poseidon and the 3 goddesses who were watching her from somewhere. Then you must really. A message from Poseidon has arrived. Message. I'll promise once again. In the name of Poseidon, Hestia, Demeter, and Hera. A message from Poseidon has arrived. Message. If you fulfill the prophecy, I will take away the suffering of your tribe. The promise of reviving the honor of their tribe after they fell to their mortal status. The prophecy she had received before she left the Elohim was beginning. Chapter 355 Cha Jung-woo 1. Team. HH, Yahiko, Thursdays 10/10. Open hollow corner bracket. I'll thank you again for your contribution in the completion of Kaini. Brontes bowed to Yi and Wu. There was a brief moment of conflict, but Brontes didn't forget the fact that Yi and Wu was the one who tossed them a lifeline when they were in a situation without hope. If Yi and Wu hadn't stepped up, the 3 Cyclops brothers would never have been able to meet again or complete Kaini. Yi and Wu was the savior of the brothers in Tartarus. Open hollow corner bracket. Me too. I agree. Sterapis and Argus bowed as well. It was somewhat awkward because they were meter-high one-eyed monsters. Open hollow corner bracket. You can ask me to do anything. Like I already said, this was just quid pro quo. And my condition was. Yi and Wu paused, pulling out the pocket watch. Brontes' single eye narrowed. Open hollow corner bracket. It was to unlock the seal, right? Right. Open hollow corner bracket. Would you give it to me real quick? Yi and Wu carefully gave the pocket watch to Brontes. You cannot see information about the item. You cannot see information about the item. ... You have reattempted to see information about the item with divine draconic eyes. You have succeeded in seeing a small part of the item. The results are being shown. Heaven Wing's pocket watch. Category. Rank. Summary. The pocket watch that Heaven Wing Cha Jung-woo left behind. It was created from Lucille's soul stone, the stone of superbia, arrogance, and it seems to hold a secret. He still couldn't learn much, but the divine draconic eyes managed to show Yian-Wu better results than before. The part of superbia that was made of the stone stood out in particular. The fact that he could see information about the soul stone meant he could analyze information about it if he raised the skill's proficiency. Only the first step was hard, it became easier after. Open hollow corner bracket. How much do you know about this stone? I only know that it's made of superbia of the 7 deadly sins. Brontes seemed a bit surprised. Open hollow corner bracket. You already know that much? Then it'll be easier to tell you. His explanation continued. Open hollow corner bracket. Like I mentioned beforehand, there are a total of 14 soulstones left behind by Lucille. The name of each soulstone is different. They've been divided into evil and good, the 7 virtues and the 7 deadly sins. We are able to use the fire of the beginning, castitas, to melt the artifact because it's pure, like its namesake. Yian-Wu wondered what the name of the soulstone that made Viera Dune into Mother Earth was. He had a guess in mind. Luxuria, lust. Open hollow corner bracket. On the other hand, superbia overpowers everything. It's aloof and high. It's also stiff, so it doesn't know how to bend to others. Because it doesn't break easily, it's the perfect place to hide something. I don't know who created it, but he must have been very skilled. What do you think he tried to hide? Brontes shrugged. Open hollow corner bracket. How would I know? I didn't make it, but close hollow corner bracket. But, do you have something in mind? Open hollow corner bracket. The seal isn't completely locked, and it was set up to have a hole somewhere. So, if a certain condition is fulfilled, there will be a reaction. Yian-Wu nodded. He had that assumption as well. The diary. Open hollow corner bracket. So to unlock it, I think you need to aim for this point. How? Open hollow corner bracket. If the person who made this watch wanted, he could have sealed the item inside of the pocket watch forever. But the fact he made a hole means he wanted the seal to be unlocked someday. Brontes's eyes shined. Open hollow corner bracket. It's a keyhole. A keyhole. Sitting in front of the furnace, Yian-Wu rubbed the pocket watch. As the fire in the furnace whooshed up, its warmth was delivered to him. To be honest, I don't know if I can release the seal. Actually, I know I can't. No one has ever been able to unlock the secret of the soulstones. If it was possible, everyone in possession of one would have transcended mortal limits. Heneva had said that it was possible even the 3 Cyclops brothers might not be able to unlock the seal. It seemed he was right. But, handling it is another story. I'll teach you about that. However, if we know what the key used to go in the keyhole is, the seal can be unlocked. It's a shame. Yian-Wu muttered to himself. A keyhole. It was most definitely the diary. Then, what's the key? He quickly came to his answer. Me. His brother had left behind the diary to try to give him something. He did say he hoped Yian-Wu would go to the clan house to take the elixir, but there were still functions other than an information source that he had left behind in the diary. The many hidden pieces he discovered after research. How to clear each floor, skill trees, and more. There was too much for all of it to be just for the elixir. Moreover, the ending of the diary was somewhat of a cliffhanger, like there was supposed to be something else. I have to find the actual diary. Clearing his thoughts, he opened his mind. He had heard about the structure and basic traits of the soulstones from Brontes. Then, it was up to him to figure out how to solve it. First, the keyhole. He pushed his magic power inside of the pocket watch. It began to shake. The needles trembled, like the watch would crack at any moment. In the past, he couldn't put in any more magic power because it seemed like it would really break, but after knowing that the pocket watch was made from a soulstone, he no longer had any reason to be concerned. The pocket watch began to float in his palm and spin like a top. An immense amount of magic power swirled around it. The amount of magic power increased. Strong winds blew and resulted in a magic power storm. The smithy Yian-Wu was in shook up and down. It was an earthquake so great that anyone passing by would have thought there was a war going on. The fire in the furnace flickered, and the weapons hanging on the wall fell to the ground. An anvil swirled to the site. The air began to spin around. What's? Heneva, who had been waiting for Yian-Wu to come out, rushed inside. He was shocked when he entered. Everything was being destroyed by the magic power storm. At this rate, not only would the smithy be blown away, so would the entire temple. It would be a bomb in the middle of the holy territory. Brahm realized the seriousness of the situation and pulled Heneva behind him to create a barrier around Yian-Wu. Victoria quickly helped. The barrier was formed after magic circles flashed around. Yi and Wu was separated from the space around him. Meanwhile, Yi and Wu didn't take his eyes off of the pocket watch. Divine draconic eyes. Fiery golden eyes. Black Gubatera, wise man's eyes. The ancient dragon Kalitas's eyes opened and flashed golden. With the Asura king Vimalasitra's eyes added on top, his consciousness dug into all the different layers of the pocket watch. The many layers were being peeled off like the layers of an onion. He reached through the layers of the pocket watch to get to its core. The soul stone was shining in a purple light. It looked holy but also ominous at the same time. The light swirled around the soul stone, but it all came from one source, a hole that was so small it couldn't be seen unless one focused all one's attention on it. It was the keyhole. Yi and Wu entered his consciousness into it. Clack. He didn't know if he was just hearing things, but he thought he heard something. It was the sound of a key fitting into a keyhole. And when the key was twisted to completely open the door. Quote exclamation mark quote. Yi and Wu's consciousness was completely sucked into it. You have been connected to Lucille's soulstone, Superbia. Synchronization is starting. The inside of the soulstone was a boundless expanse of sea. The purple light from before was nothing compared to the light inside. There was too much to tell how much there was. It was magic power. It was holy power, demonic energy, and draconic power. Moreover, it was monstrous power, spiritual power, curse power, skill power, and law power. Then, it took on another property when it spun in the air. It was all the energies within the tower. An energy that could become anything. It could be applied anywhere, and it could be swallowed. There was so much of the energy that one could get lost in it. Is this Lucille's soul stone? Yi and Wu realized how Viera Dune was able to swallow Mother Earth after seeing it. Anything was possible if the infinite and omnipotent energy was swallowed. Just this one soulstone had this much power, but what would happen if all 14 of them were combined? It made sense that gods and demons were fearful of it. He guessed it was why Lucille was the target of the gods and demons. The problem is how to approach this. He was deep in thought after seeing all the energy. He remembered what Brontes said about this. Nothing can be done but pull out the contents of it slowly. That's how the fire of the beginning of time was pulled out. But don't touch it rashly. The energy will explode. It's as fierce as Lucille in the legends. Everything has to be done carefully. If not, you and all of us here will be hurt. Also, there's one more problem. Where to put the extracted energy after it's pulled out? Castitas has the furnace as its medium, but I don't know about Superbia. And even if you do collect it somewhere, you won't be able to use it all. Castitas had enough energy to burn the fire of the beginning of time for 1,000 years for Pluto. Even now, energy was still being pulled out of it, like a stream that always flows. The three Cyclops brothers only used it as a furnace. They didn't imagine how else to use it. The stone of Superbia wouldn't be that different. Brontes had been concerned about this. Even if Yi and Wu managed to find the keyhole and open the door, if he couldn't handle the energy behind it, he wouldn't be able to unlock the seal beyond it. However, there was something Yi and Wu had that the three Cyclops brothers didn't know about. The Philosopher's Stone. If it was the heart that could accept anything in the world, wouldn't it be able to hold the Soul Stone? Yi and Wu thought about the demonism inside of the Philosopher's Stone, but he still wanted to attempt it. He could be giving the demonism an extraordinary power, but if he could collect all of the energy of the Soul Stone, he would grow just as much. It might be a good thing since I've been thinking that a lower-level demon wasn't enough for it. He could find a new energy source. With the method that Brontes taught him, he slowly pulled out the purple energy from Superbia. Then, he slowly began to lead it to the Philosopher's Stone that was next to his heart. Hoo-hoo, you're doing something fun. He felt like he could hear the demonism's laugh coming from somewhere. Chapter 356 Cha Jung-woo 2. Team. Yahiko, Thursdays 1/10. The voice was vanishing as if it had never been there. The guy was quietly watching everything like always. Yi and Wu was a bit annoyed, but he continued to pull out the purple energy. He had said he wouldn't touch him until Yi and Wu was ripe, so he was sure he'd be fine for now. It wasn't that hard to move the purple energy. After pulling it up, it was sucked to the Philosopher's Stone like they were connected by glue. He did wonder if he could use all of it properly because there was so much, but he didn't stop. The Philosopher's Stone heated up. It was a difficult task because it seemed like it was about to explode any second, but after enduring the horrible pain of his body burning, he succeeded in moving all the purple energy. The philosopher's stone trembled, as if it was still hungry. He didn't know where all of it had gone. Gathering his consciousness into one, he created a phantom form. It was easier this way to examine the soul stone deeper. And when he opened his eyes again, Yin Wu could see countless letters in the philosopher's stone. To my brother, who'll read this diary someday. From the first sentence that he had heard so many times he nearly memorized it. Sorry. Because of me, a strange message was sent to my phone. I lost my tie to reality after that. It occurred to me I might be able to get the elixir faster than I expected. To the last sentence at the end of the diary. The voices his brother had left behind were floating around as words. The diary. Yin Wu realized he was at the core of the soulstone, the magical tool that made the diary work. The source of magic power was most definitely in here. He observed each of the words carefully. However, there were too many of them, like fish swimming around in an ocean. They came together to make new sentences or words he couldn't decipher. Yin Wu moved through the letters. The letters didn't simply create words or sentences. Sometimes, they took the shape of something. Most of them were of Zheng Wu, as if they were trying to act out the scenes in the diary. There were many images of Zheng Wu heaven wing swinging his sword, spreading his wings, and looking down at the world. Then, they all scattered and took another shape. Yin Wu looked at the multiple scenes soundlessly and was able to find a pattern to them. Slowly treading through the flow, he reached the center. The concentration of the letters was so deep that the white world was now black. At the end, Yin Wu found himself stopping in his tracks. There was a person there. A naked man whose head was gathered in his knees. He couldn't see how the man looked because his body was covered by his wings. Thump. Yin Wu could feel his heart beat faster. Could it be? The man didn't lift his head from the clutter of letters that was wrapped around him. Was he in a deep sleep? He had probably felt Yin Wu's presence, but he didn't budge. Thump, thump. Yin Wu's heart beat faster. Although he was only a phantom, he really felt like his heart was beating. His breathing turned rapid. He couldn't think properly because his head was blank. Only one word rang in his head. Hung. The voice he heard when he left Persephone's temple. Why was the only thing he could think of the voice that desperately called his name? Yin Wu quickly gathered his wits and ran toward where the man was in case he lost him. I found someone I love. Time continues to flow even now. Everyone was tired because of the long war. Letters spun around the man. The sentences danced for Yin Wu to come join him. Each word, no, every syllable had his brother's touch. They were traces of the lonely times he had. Happiness, regret, and sadness were gathered in the words. One by one, they left. My body felt heavier. Yin Wu climbed above the flood of letters. The letters collided against Yin Wu's body. Bruises and injuries appeared on his phantom body. It hurt. Too much. I miss you. Yin Wu wanted to shout that he was here. But there was no way to express himself in a world that he couldn't speak. He felt frustrated. He tried to reach him as fast as he could. But the flood of the letters were so strong that he couldn't fight against it anymore. With just a single misstep, he would be swept away. Only I was left in Arthea. Still, he treaded forward, to get closer to him. Where did it start to go wrong? He finally reached him. No one was on my side. Pant, pant. Yin Wu gasped for breath. The man was close to him. Close enough to touch, but the shape that was spewing letters was stopping him from getting closer. He thought of how to get rid of it, but it was hard enough not getting swept away by it. What could he do? There had to be some way. If not, then with brute strength. Yin Wu clenched his teeth. Third step, dragon body awakening. All authorities released. He pulled all 900 of the channelings he had to him. Countless gazes stuck on him. The purple energy pulled from the soulstone moved according to his will for the first time. Waak! His wings of fire spread apart. He felt fuller than after Astraeus. Now, he was confident he could fight against most 9 kings. Kwang! With such power, he ran at full strength. But the shape didn't break. Rather, more letters covered him and tried to push him away. Krrrr. Still, Yin Wu didn't stop. He threw his body forward with the resolve to fight back as much as it pushed him away. The philosopher's stone and his magic circuit spun like crazy. His consciousness became firmer and his senses more detailed. His flashing fiery golden eyes looked for any weaknesses. But the shape still didn't budge. There weren't any cracks in it either. Only words that were broken into syllables. But even those were created into new sentences after being thrashed around by the waves. This isn't enough. Brontes had said he was the key. The only key that fit in the keyhole and could open the lock. So when he had unlocked the seal to enter the soulstone, he thought that was it. However, there was another lock. All the letters. The diary was a lock. Where did it go wrong? From some time, all the letters that he could see were filled with regret. They were probably from what the guy was thinking of. It would have been better if he was thinking of happy memories, but why was he only thinking of useless things? Damned bastard. Yi and Wu cursed at him. He was like that back on Earth too. On the outside, he was bright, but internally, he was always depressed. A timid guy who was always worried about others. When Yi and Wu said anything about it, he would argue back about what he had done so wrong. That was why after he died, he was continuing to regret even here. And he was making himself suffer. Because I trusted people too much. Or because I didn't take care of my team members and tried to take care of my greed. It would be nice if he could do something about these damned letters at the very least. How was this depressed guy one of the greatest rankers? And Arthea's clan ranking was 6th at one point. Yi and Wu wondered if Jung Woo's personality had changed after entering the tower, but that didn't seem to be the case either. Or, after I abandoned my family. It had to stop. He needed more strength. Something to break it at once. Isn't there anyone who can help? Yi and Wu looked up to the sky. There were more than the 900 gods and demons looking at him now. Those who were trying to peek at him using whatever method they could. The supernaturals took an interest in him after he killed a god. A dad, of the Godly Society open angle bracket Dilmun close angle bracket is watching you with Nergal's help. Thor, of the Godly Society open angle bracket Asgard close angle bracket has paid a small price to Vimalasitra to observe you. Erlang Shen, of the Godly Society open angle bracket Chan sect close angle bracket is speaking about you with Prince Nezha. Citri, of the Demonic Society open angle bracket L'Infernal close angle bracket has approached Agaras to watch you. Current available authorities, 2711. Because they couldn't watch due to the block of Tartarus, they were paying a price to gods and demons who were connected to him to share their vision. The price was probably extremely high. A price so high that a mortal like him couldn't even imagine what it was. That was how much attention Yi and Wu was getting from gods and demons. Since things had come to this, Yi and Wu was planning on accepting all the authorities. No, he was even going to accept everything that was offered now. Although I don't know if I can endure with just consciousness. Yi and Wu wondered if he could accept the authorities properly in his phantom form and not his actual body, but he didn't care. What he needed now was a mighty firepower. You have gained the authority of Adad, E. Karkara. You have gained the authority of Thor, Lightning God's Hammer. You have gained the authority of Erlang Shen, Dragon Kill. You are gaining too many authorities. Your body cannot handle it. It is advised you stop contracting potential apostle positions. Warning. You are gaining too many authorities. Your body may be destroyed. Warning. You are gaining. Divine blessings are activating. The divine authorities will be used. Demonic blessings are activating. The demonic authorities will be accepted. Draconic blessings are activating. Your dragon body is strengthened. The Philosopher's Stone has been strengthened. Your demonic divine dragon body has been strengthened. Your demonic divine dragon body has been strengthened. Even in that moment, the letters around him continued to change. Did they think I could cure the poison? Everyone came to kill me. Crunch, crunch. When he had some firepower, he tossed his body forward one more time with as much power as he could. Krrng. A mighty firepower that covered the letters in flames poured down on the world. It was so strong that he felt like his body was going to be split apart. But even in the explosion, the shape didn't budge. Still, Yi and Wu endured. No one was on my side. He didn't give up, consecutively using regeneration to repair his body as he stretched his hand out to the shape. Fortunately, because of the characteristics wave of fire had, the shape was continuing to be shaken. The letters were shifted side to side. Finally, his hand reached the shape. I knew then, there was only one person in the entire world on my side. How could he get rid of this damned shape that wasn't budging? No matter how hard he pushed, it didn't move. No, there was a small crack on it that was about the size of a finger, but it could close up at any moment. If only he had a bit more time. If only someone pushed him. He thought it could be possible to reach him and somehow wake him up. Then, but I couldn't show my weak side to them. Yi and Wu felt like someone really was pushing him. And not just one, but two people. Who was here? He looked around with surprise and found a familiar face smiling at him. No, to be exact, he was smirking at him. The Monkey King, an unnamed being, licks his lips as he looks at you. What are you doing like a fool? You can't even use your strength. You think your future wife will be satisfied? It was most definitely the Monkey King's shedding he had swallowed. And next to him, an unnamed being scoffs at you. A woman with long fiery hair scoffed at him with arrogant eyes. I don't like you, but I have something to say to that guy there. She was also someone who shouldn't be here, like the shedding. They were the two beings who had taken care of all the unnecessary channelings when he was suffering from the divine fever. The two pushed him before he could ask them anything. Thanks to them, although Yan Wu experienced the pain of his body being split apart by the letters, he was able to reach him. Reach the younger brother who was trembling like a baby bird, with his wings around his body. Yan Wu spread his arms around his little brother. Even then, the letters were showing the information of the diary. With this, I'll end the diary. Because I believe that my brother will come here someday if I leave this behind. Chapter 357 Cha Jung-woo 3. Team. Yahiko, Thursdays 2/10. That instant, light exploded. Countless letters scattered and wrapped around the world of Yan Wu and Jung-woo. Waak. Beep, beep beep. I was extremely dizzy. I didn't even drink, but why was I so dizzy? Drink. Wait, did I ever drink before? I did secretly buy a bottle of soju with Hung on my last birthday, but that was it. Since he said he didn't like it, I never drank more after that sip. No, I've drunk all night with Valdebik before. We learned that Heneva was fermenting beer in the alcohol cellar and snuck in secretly at night. It was so good that we ended up emptying 5 oak barrels. Although, we ended up getting beat up by Heneva's pipe because we passed out there. Still, it was worth it. Ah, I'm drooling just thinking about it now. Is there any way I can get it again? It seemed like Heneva was secretly fermenting it somewhere else. Should I take a look around? But wait, Heneva, who was that? Thoughts that I couldn't make sense of filled my head. Did I have a strange dream? Unfamiliar names appeared and disappeared in my head. So did multiple memories. There were some holes in them, and they were so completely dismembered that it was hard to tell what they were about, but they felt vivid like they happened yesterday. I was glad, happy, anxious, depressed, sad, and grim at the end, like I saw a sad movie. But the jumbled memories quickly scattered, like how dreams suddenly vanished when you wake up. All the scenes were swept away like sandcastles on the beach. What is this? I rubbed my temples, opening my eyes. I could see a neat desk and books stained with spit. There was a notebook with a pen lying next to it. I guess I fell asleep while I had been studying all night. What were all those memories? They felt important, but I couldn't remember what they were no matter how hard I tried. I frowned, trying to remember them again somehow. Beep, beep, my alarm clock rang noisily, pulling me back to reality. The headache that was pushing against my head disappeared like it was never there. No, I didn't even recognize it was gone. 7:32. S****. School began at 8. I was late. The strange memories were already gone from my head. Phew, I barely made it. Dang, what, you made it? Of course. Hee hee, who do you think I am? D***. They're directly discriminating against us now. It's a sad world to live in for people who can't study. The high school classroom was bustling today, too, because it was an all-boys school filled with gross, sweaty guys. Rumble. They must have been playing a game of piling up on each other or something somewhere because some chubby dude slipped on the floor. The desks and chairs around him fell down like dominoes. The kids whose books and snacks fell to the ground cursed as they stepped on the chubby guy. It was a nest full of beasts and confusion. S***. I didn't know I would come back here. Still, I had been a bit glad to come back here since it had been a while, but it felt like all those feelings vanished at once. What should I do about these heated beast bastards? It had been a while. I came here in the classroom yesterday, but what was I thinking? I pressed my temples again and got rid of the strange feelings I had. This was all because of my headache this morning. What's wrong? Does your head hurt? My friend asked with a concerned face. He had been joking around just a moment ago. We became close because we were in the same class in freshman year. His name was... What was his name again? Do you wanna go to the nurse? I'm fine. Good. And don't tell Hung. He's gonna nag me again. I waved my hand. I was sick frequently since I was young and suffered from colds all the time. Now, I was better and only got headaches, but I was still careful because of my genetic susceptibility. Mom was often sick, too. Doctors said the symptoms we had were hard to diagnose with modern medicine. They said it should be reported to the field or something. Thankfully, we were able to use that for my mom's hospital bills, but it was still a horrendous disease. But I think you should tell Yin Wu. It's fine, I know my body best. I can just endure it for a bit and I'll be good. Also, if I bring the guy who's probably getting beat up in front of the school gates, I'll be the bad guy. Unlike me, who was weak to no end, Hung was super healthy. Even though we were identical twins, he didn't suffer from any of the rare symptoms and was athletic. He also got into fights all the time. Thanks to that, he was marked as a problem child by teachers and was corporally punished by them. He was so different from me, who was classified as a model student, so he was pretty famous in our school. Even though I had rushed over, I was 10 minutes late, but teachers let me off the hook. My brother, who had arrived 5 minutes later than me, was mercilessly beaten with a stick in front of the school by the dean of students. He was probably grinding his teeth while getting furiously beat up right now. I snuck out of the house this morning even though I knew we were late. Today, I planned on avoiding him. He shouldn't have eaten my mango jellies in the refrigerator without my permission. I felt refreshed after taking revenge. Well, it was a bit cowardly, but there was nothing else I could do. I couldn't defeat him with strength, so this was my only option. Then that's a relief. Anyways, if you can't hang in there, tell me right away. Don't just faint like last time. F***. The back of my head was hit my Yin Wu so many times that it's flat now. My friend grumbled as he shook his head. Right, he was also a victim of my brother's temper. It was pitiful. I should be nicer to him. Our Hung is a bit like that, You brothers are the same. I frowned at what he said. I was still better than my brother. No, I couldn't even be compared to him. How could he compare me to that schizophrenic? The older one beats people up when he's bored, and the younger one mocks people with his mouth. What's the difference? Looks. Don't I have better looks? I was someone who received confessions from girls although I went to an all-boys high school, sucker. This son of a. Arg, let's just not. My friend sighed. Just then, the bell for first period rang. Although he always complained, he was a gracious guy who took care of his brothers the best. A tsunere, he was like Heneva. Heneva, another strange name popped in my head. It seemed like a name I missed. I didn't remember anything at all. Why, was it the name of some philosopher? I thought to myself, looking at my friend who was returning to his seat. But really, what was his name again? Our poor schizo. Hey, you son of a b****. You're dead, really. Me, our poor schizo. Would it hurt you to wake me up? Me, our poor schizo. The f***. Me, winking face. Our poor schizo. Shut up. Before you get f***, get over. Me, winking face. Our poor schizo. I told you to stop sending weird stuff. Me, cat emoticon with desperate eyes and paws gathered. Our poor schizo. I'll really teach you what happens if you mess with me. Me, hua. Our poor schizo. $T$ at hash. At hash. Geez, he really can't argue for the life of him. I grinned, looking at the curse-filled messages. Seeing as how the messages kept on scrolling up, he seemed pretty mad. He was probably super frustrated because the messages were marked as read but there was no response. Class was so boring that I yawned. As seniors, we knew everything that was being taught. Classes were only conducted for grades, and with the college entrance exams coming up, most of us just used class time to study. Teachers didn't say anything about students who were solving problems from prep books on their own. I could get away with using my phone. Of course, if the teacher noticed me on my phone too much, he would take it away, but if I apologized, he would just give it back. This was why the reputation of a model student was important. I was already learning how to act in society. I thought about getting a prep book out to study like my other classmates, but strangely, I didn't feel like it. I've felt like this since the morning. Like I was missing something. What was I missing? It seemed important. No matter how much I revisited my memories, I couldn't remember anything. I was sitting blankly at my desk with my phone all day. I felt strange, and I studied a lot until now, so I thought a day of slacking off wouldn't hurt. Of course, after lunch, I planned on clearing my head and holding my pen again. URRG. Just then, the phone in my hand suddenly vibrated. I was just about to download a game. You can make a wish if you reach the end of the obelisk. Would you like to participate? Yes or no? This again. It was the spam message that I got every day. It was annoying because I blocked it, but it came back with another number. Now, it was almost interesting how I got the same message with the same information and the same time for about a month. Obelisk. A monument to worship a god or mark the history of a victory. However, here, it seemed like it was talking about a tower. A standard game ad. The problem was that where it said, yes or no, there was no ad link. There wasn't any button to download the game even if I wanted to. Did they want me to play or not? I didn't know what the message wanted me to do. URRRNG. My phone vibrated again. It was another text. After seeing the sender, my face stiffened. Father. I deleted the message right away without reading it. It was obvious what it would be about. The day Hung found out I was in contact with this person, bad things would happen. There was a big difference between my brother being jokingly mad and really mad. He was so cold that he felt like another person. And it was clear what would happen after that. I didn't want to see it. Was there really nothing to do? I scanned through social media, and after that, I really didn't have anything to do. I still felt strange, but it was better than this morning, so I put my phone down and lifted my pen again. No matter what I did, I still had to study. I couldn't give up my grades or the college entrance exams. Getting into a prestigious college with a 4-year scholarship. Then, joining a munitions company instead of doing the regular soldier duties to earn some money for my family and immediately working at a big company after that. It was the future I dreamed of. Taking care of my sick mother and creating a family was my dream. There was no time for rest. I was about to go through my prep book when my phone vibrated again. I thought it was a message again, so I was about to turn it off, but it was a call. The moment I saw the sender, my heart skipped a beat. Hospital. It happened suddenly while she was getting better. Since the urgent issue was taken care of now, let's watch her and see what happens. After the physician left, I looked at my mom blankly. Beep, beep, she was breathing through an oxygen mask. No one would be able to believe that she had been joking with us yesterday. She didn't look good at all. I'll be back after some fresh air. I didn't listen to my brother's response and left the hospital room with wobbly steps. I felt like all the energy left my body. Why did I feel so dizzy since this morning? URRNG. Just then, my back pocket vibrated. I blankly pulled out my phone. You can make a wish if you reach the end of the obelisk. Would you like to participate? Yes or no? Even though it was a spam message I saw all the time, it was particularly conspicuous because it came at a different time. One word stood out the most. Wish. It would be nice if it wasn't just a game ad and was something that appeared in movies or novels. If I could really make a wish and heal my mother's mysterious disease, I would want nothing more. I tapped the screen, trying to calm down. Just then, the yes or no section turned blue. There was a link connected to him. I found myself clicking the yes button. Note: thanks everyone for your patience till now. According to current situation, HH will be able to return back to translating in a week, so probably by next week we will be back to normal.